me stand or
You can sit. Feel
Okay.
free. We're ready to go when you are.
Okay. My name is Charles Edward Wilson. I'm a World War II D-Day Normandy veteran. And my outfit was the one who hit the beach first. We were the spearhead to lead all the other units onto the coast of France. We were a strike force division. And that's what I'll be telling you a little bit later. But I want to start out with pre-war for a minute. And so we lived down in Somerset, north of Somerset, in a little town called Eubank. And they were 6 kids, 3 girls and 3 boys, and mother and dad. And so on Pearl Harbor Day, when the Japanese came in 1941 and attacked America at Pearl Harbor, my mother and dad, well, first of all, we worked, and we were in Depression days. And you would work for 10 cents an hour. 10 hours a day for $1. If you worked a week, you'd make $6 for 6 days, 60 hours. That's how we lived. So life was tough, but we were poor, we knew it. But everybody else was almost as poor as we were. And we bartered to get things from our neighbors. My mother always grew big patches of sweet potatoes, so everybody could come get sweet potatoes. We'd go to your house and get this, and this house, and this, because that's what we did. And we had a huckster wagon who came along and traded. He'd give you product, parcels that you need for chickens and eggs and whatever you could trade in, and you'd swap on that huckster wagon. So that's kind of how we lived. So I won't go any further than that, but to say that we were, even when before I went to war, we were still in Depression. We weren't out in Depression days yet. And so when Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese, my mother and father got to thinking about it. And they were making $1 a day, cleaning ditches in the WWII and so forth. Go along the road, take a shovel and shovel the mud out of the ditch so the water would run without doing too much damage to roads that didn't have any gravel on them. And so, and they discussed this matter, and they said, Norma is my older sister, she and I, they said, if you two could take care of the kids, your mother and father will go to Cincinnati. We'll work 5 days a week. And they got in with a filling station man where he would furnish them gasoline to come home. So then on Friday afternoon, they would come back to Somerset, Eubank, where we lived. They were called Floyd's Bridge, really, along the railroad track. And so they would come home. And they did. Each week they'd come and get in about 11 o'clock Friday night, work all day Saturday until 2 o'clock Sunday. They'd go back to Cincinnati ready for their job tomorrow. And so she and I were able to be the big brothers and a little bit of pop and mom. And every child had a chore to do. And if the little ones wasn't getting theirs done, we'd walk over by and get beside them and help them a little bit, to make them feel still that this is the right thing to do. So we did that for almost 2 years. Just kept them in school, cooked for them, done the things we had to do on the farm, milk the cows, do this and that and the other, gather up wood for the night, and for the cook stove. But next morning we didn't have electricity at that time. So if you didn't bring in wood to build a fire in the kitchen stove, and it rained that night, you're up a tree the next morning because you don't have any dry wood to start a fire. And so that's kind of how we lived. So we agreed to let them go to Cincinnati. And for 2 years, they were making about $1 and something an hour, from 10 cents an hour to $1 and something in the defense factory. And they worked in the defense factory. And my father he found out what kind of shells I was shooting, and that's what he was doing. He was making shell cases for them. And he told them people, said, you give me this couple hours to rest. My son shoots them, I'll make them. And so we were using the shells 48 hours, 24 hours a day. And he said, but they didn't require him to do that, but he's willing. So they worked there until about 2 months before I went to service, registered in Somerset. So they came, got the children, and my oldest sister, she went with them, of course, and then she babysat for a little while with the kids, rest of them, and until she got a job. Then I think they got someone else to help. So that's where they were in Cincinnati when I left. So I was in school. I was a senior. And they took me out of school. I registered on my birthday, August the 25th, 1943, for the draft. And the draft had just started a little bit before that time. So, and then 3 days later, they had to meet that afternoon. And 3 days later, I got a notice that I would be going to Louisville. And if I passed, I had to go to war. And I was 18 years old just that day. So I went back to Somerset and told them, I said, hey, I just registered 3 days ago, and I'm in school. They said, when did your school start? I said, 1st August, and my birthday was August 25th. So I went to Louisville, and they didn't give me any relief at all. So I went to Louisville. When I got there, they put us in the proper uniform for our physical. And you all are old enough, and I can tell you the uniform. They stripped us off butt naked. Shoes, stockings, and everything. And you had you got a string around your neck with a long cardboard here with a number on it. I never could look down there and figure out what that number said. I couldn't read it upside down. But I found out later that was our serial number. That's when we got through, that serial number would be our number for our lifetime. So we stripped off all of our clothes, as I said, shoes and socks, and with that around us, and that was our uniform for 3 to 4 hours. And we went through all the procedures that they gave us, all the physicals, and I've never seen so many naked bodies of men in my life. I said, I don't know if I like this or not, but it's part of life in the Army, and for that situation. Of course, in barracks, you see whole barracks of men running to the showers and this and that and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, when we got through, they didn't even let us go get our clothes and put on before they swore us in. They swore us in naked, just like we were for the last 3 hours. We held up our right hand, and we swore that we would honor the United States of America and defend it. So I went up in these clothes, say. And when I went home, I had the same clothes on, but I had this piece of paper in my pocket saying that now I'm a soldier of the United States Armed Forces. I hadn't been signed yet. So I took that to school and told them I had to resign, had to withdraw. That now I'm a soldier of the United States Army and I'll be leaving in a few days. So that was the story. And so then, after I withdrew from school, I did a few things, girlfriend, and run the old car. I had no late model car, and you were on ration on gasoline. You had 3 gallons a week. That's all you were allowed. You had a big AS thing in your car window, and they would check you to see what kind and how many miles you driven. You know, it was very strict. So but anyway, I enjoyed it. And so, in about 4 days, we got a notice to come to Somerset and get on the train to go to Fort Thomas. And there we received our uniforms, everything to make us look like a soldier. This kind of a hat, and of course we had ODs and khakis. This is not a real uniform, but I made this and put this on so that when I speak to different ones, I can. And the children like me to come out here to the concrete for that. So I went there. We spent about 4, 5, 6 days there. And I had a chance at nighttime. Mother and Dad live over at Savannah now. And they had a streetcar there that went from Fort Thomas down through the country, down through the fields, and crossed the river, and you got on 4th Street. Then I'd get on a streetcar or a bus and go up there, or sometimes even meet. I'd go up and eat supper with them. And I did that a few nights, and then all of a sudden we were gone. They backed a train in there, and Fort Thomas to Newport. They've got a railroad track that backs right in, and there's a street over here and one here. They backed that train in, we got on there, and we didn't have a clue. They never tell you anything, where you're going, and wherever you go, they're taking you there. So we loaded that train, and when we got loaded, I pulled out of there, and by being a Boy Scout, a farmer, and that kind of thing, I knew what east and west, and north and south was. So we started going south along the Ohio River. And everywhere that train would stop, trains go through a part of town that you normally don't go in, you know. We'd ask, where are we? And they'd tell us. So we went on down to Memphis and crossed the river over to Arkansas. And but then we began to see things that we had never seen before. Big old oil well in somebody's front yard with a little shack over here, and a big old Cadillac car sitting there. One right after the other, and then we'd go a piece and back up, go a piece. But then finally we got out of Arkansas and we went into Oklahoma. And when we arrived in Fort Sill, in Lawton, Oklahoma, the train stopped and said, "This is your destination." And we looked out the window and there were some mean looking old sergeants out there with a bus, and he was standing right in front of his bus. And this one would take quotas till he got his busload. This other would take his. And then he didn't know where we were going. And so there's an Indian reservation out there, an old Indian reservation called Fort Sill now, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Artillery school for the United States Armed Forces. It still is. So we got there, they got us settled in, began to start immediately with cigarette butts on the ground, go around picking them up, and you tear that apart and take the tobacco and make fertilizer out of it, and you roll that little piece of paper up and you dispose of it that way because it'll dissolve. See? That's the kind of stuff. Then blankets, beds, and this and this. But it didn't take them long to get us into the war situation. And we were to be on that fast track. And while I was at Fort Sill, I would give anything to go home. I would give anything. I was just 18 years old. Never been away from home. Not for 4. But if my parents had come out in that 30 days, they would not have been allowed to see me. No telephone calls. We didn't have cell phones and that kind of stuff then. You had to go to PX or pay station to do that. So we just didn't do it. But after a little while, we began to adjust to the whole barracks full of soldiers. We all now get to be brothers, started being part of. And then the home kind of got more distant. But man, I was homesick for a while. Oh man, I'd give anything. In fact, I wouldn't care if I go to AWL. And that's way without leave. Of course, they'd have been after I had to take me, put me in prison some point there. But anyway, I made it. So they started us out very intensively, very hard training. And then before we went, we started on hikes, long endurance things. You'd come in after a long day and you'd go to bed, and about 30 minutes they'd fall out and we're ready to go again. Well, we weren't ready to go again, but that was to teach you endurance. How to be mean, tough, and the more you got, and we had a phrase called bitching. If you got to complaining about something, that meant that you're now becoming a soldier. And so we got tougher and tougher and tougher. Then we went into all kinds of things. But then we started doing the obstacle courses, going under fire out there and all those kind of things. Going through gas chambers at different times and multiple times. See if you can go in a gas chamber full of gas. And you take your gas mask off of your belt and put it on and clear it, and then you could stay in there. But if you didn't, you'd pass out. But you soon learned to do that. To blow hard, get that gas all out of there, then it spits your face good, and then you could stay there. So all these things was building things within you to make you a tough, mean soldier. And so that's where they were taking us. We were on that short course. And then it come time to graduate. And I've got a picture there of the graduation. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. But then we graduated. And up to this time, they took us everywhere we went. From this time on, they said, now you're on your own. You have graduated from this school out in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now you're a genuine soldier, ready to go somewhere to defend America, either in the Japanese area or Europe. And so they said, okay, Wilson, Yours to go to Fort Meade, Maryland. You be at Fort Meade, Maryland at a certain date and time. So when I got to Cincinnati, I went down to the train station. They have a tremendous, they had one of the most wonderful stations there for years and years. It's beautiful. And I went down and said, now I've got to be at Fort Meade, Maryland at a certain time. What train do I get on and when do I go to get there? They told me. I said, okay, thank you. But I had a delay en route. I could go home for about 5 or 6 days, and I did, and enjoyed the time off. But then, when it came time, I was on that train, and when I got to Washington, then I began to learn where Fort Meade, Maryland was, and this, and Baltimore, and things like that. So then I looked out, and our bus was ready to take us out to Fort Meade. And so there's where we had some more training. Further and some of our training we did not get back in Fort Sill. This is now getting to be tough stuff. And so, for right here now, I'll stop and take questions, if you have any up to this point. Okay, questions?
Which branch of the service were you in?
I was in the U.S. Army, and my address was 42nd Field Artillery, 4th Infantry Division, 42nd Field Artillery Battalion, Battery C, Section 1. And that's how you would mail me a letter. 4th Division, New York, New York. And that would get to me sometime.
Okay.
Were there any people that you knew at your training camp?
And you mean initially?
Yes.
No.
Didn't
I
know.
left Somerset with a bunch I knew. By the time we got to Louisville, some of them, they went to the Navy or the Marines. Some of them, they took them right in and was gone. And I went to there, I said, I'll take the other way. And I got to go back home and spend 4 or 5 days. I didn't know anyone, but I knew a bunch of them. But somehow, after a while, I said, well, I was so homesick, I would love to go home. But then we made adjustments, and we became buddies. And the whole barracks downstairs we were housemates. There's about 50 or 60 in a big old open house with no doors and windows in it, just a big bunk, and upstairs the same way.
Is that all? Okay.
And after we arrived in Maryland, then they put us through extensive trainings, and training that we had not had to further the cause of getting us ready for battle in the combat zone. We yet didn't know where we were going, but we were getting closer to knowing we was going to Europe, because that's where we were headed, east and not west. So after we stayed there for so long, and while we were there, they had the electric trains that went from Fort Meade into Baltimore, and so we everywhere we went, we got it for free. So we went to have one of the ball games. We went to a baseball game. We enjoyed that. Then we got back on and back to the base we went, and so then continues our regimentation, because we never knew when they would call us out to do this, and something else. But we stayed there then, took about 2 or 3 weeks, and further our training. Then all of a sudden we got the announcement. Now your next move is you'll go to Captain Miles Stannis, Massachusetts. Where is Massachusetts? Where's Captain Miles Stannis, Massachusetts? I didn't have a clue. But I found out where it was, and as I said, we had to be self-reliant now. So I found out where it was. So we got on a bus at that time and rode up through Connecticut and on up to Boston. And this Army base was just outside of Boston Harbor. So while we were there, they gave us the last thing to make us tough. I mean, if you went through this, you could go through anything. And it's called swamp training. They had the doggonest swamp you ever saw laid out. And with obstacles here and there that you were timed. You only had so much time to get through it. And so you'd think you stepped on something good and you go all the way to the bottom. If you took a picture of yourself before you went, and then you come out and look in the mirror when you got through, you'd scared half to death. What in the world's that? So luckily I went through it. And I always said that if anybody else could do it the first time, I shall do it the same first time. It'll only take one time. And I did. But I think there's still some soldiers there yet trying to get through that obstacle course. Because they had to go through more than once. You had to keep going again and again until you made it. But I made it the first time, but I was a mess. And clean up, get all them shoes cleaned up, all that stuff off your clothes and this, that, and the other. But that's part of life. You have to learn to endure and live. And so, then after we had that, then we were there for about 2 weeks. Then we started going to Boston Harbor. And we would take all our stuff like we were leaving. Duffel bag and everything we owned, it was on our back. And we would load the ship. And we'd go on, stay a while, and get familiar with some part of the ship. Then we'd get off and go back to the barracks. So we went again, did the same thing. Finally, the third time, we went, and so but this time we were getting quite familiar with the ship. And this time, we decided we'd go down to the latrine and shoot some craps. Nickel or dime, you know, we didn't have no money. I didn't have any when I left home, and I didn't still have any. And they only paid us $50 a month to overseas fighting time, and $33 that went home to your parents. It left you 17 bucks. And we didn't have no place to spend it, and you didn't get it maybe every 3 to 6 months. But then we loaded. We went down, we shooting craps, and I was a little bit ahead. And I was rolling them dice, and boy, they were coming up 7-11s. Then all of a sudden, we began to hear sounds. And he said, this is not normal. So we grabbed our few pennies that we earned out there, and we went up the top side. And we were being tugged out to sea by 3 big old tugboats. And they had gotten all that ship loaded. And there were 28,000 of us on that one ship. You had about this much space, just enough to lay down in. A little narrow aisle about that wide. And there were 28,000 of us, and we were going to England. So when they got us out where they could cut us loose, and when we hit the English Channel, not English Channel, but the Channel, they cut us loose and they fired up the big old engines on the ship, and we started out. So we started our journey. We weren't in an escort or convoy. We were single ship, making that journey all by our lonesome. And the ship would go so far and it would zigzag this way, back this way, and go straight. So the U-boats of the German army could not come and get us. Because before we went, we had U-boats all around the United States, off the coast, ready to, and they did attack. We had shipping that was destroyed up along South Carolina and along those sea areas. And so we kept going and hoped and prayed that we would not get blown up. So later, 7 days later, we pulled into Liverpool, England. And then we started unloading. Then they had a convoy of trucks that hauled soldiers in the back where they have seats for 15, not 15 or 20 at the most. And they had this convoy, and they were taking us from there. As soon as one would pull out, another one would pull in. So they kept coming and running until they got all of us on that ship and taken to southern England. All of southern England had been evacuated. There was nobody there. They might have been some people who ran bars for those fellows who had been there. I'll stop and tell you why I'm there, because my division that I'm now was with, this one, is already there. So they left the States in December of 43. And so, and they went to England. They were training there with their tanks. And we were a strike force division. And we were patterned after the Blitzkrieg German units. But we had to be a lot meaner than they, because when the German army went to a country, they'd drop a bomb or two, a shell or two, and go in and send those motorcycle people in and take a country. And then they would surrender. Well, we had to be tougher than that, because the German army had far better equipment than we did. We had to learn to deal with them. So they were there training, and yet I did not know who and where I would be. And so I was in England 6 days. Never saw an English woman. Never saw an Englishman. I was never in any towns. When we landed in Liverpool, the Liverpool harbor is here's Liverpool here. And it had been bombed with those robot bombs and so forth, and bombers. It was one of the targets. But the harbor was still out there, and that's where we unloaded. And then as fast as they could get us to southern England. And then we got down there, we were in field units. Big old tents, one right beside the other, so close that they just touched each other. This one was full, that was full, and so forth. And anywhere you looked down there was Army equipment. There was no place that you could go or even stand without being in a pile of something that was going to be used for the war. So we stayed there then a few days, and I wasn't down with them yet. In Eisenhower, while these guys were training over there, they already knew who was going to be the lead this invasion. The 4th Infantry Division. When we got there, the 4th Infantry Division has its full strength. And I'll tell you that a little bit more. But he came out to where they were training. Week after week, he and his General Marshal and the guys would come out there and watch them. And to see how they were coming along in order for the invasion. And they were coming along so good that they were going out in the English Channel and then coming back to England and invading England. And the first casualties of the war came out of the 4th Division. A U-boat from the German got in amongst them and fired upon the group and killed some of them. And then they shot down a German, and they took the first Air Force German officer in captivity in about that same time. But we lost casualties before we ever attacked the beach. But then when it came time, and we were there now, and so then the invasion's going to happen, and the 4th Division and Eisenhower had the decision. So he got up and he's in print, showing him doing this. He said that the invasion will be led by the 4th Infantry Division. They will be landing on Utah Beach, and they'll be going inland at 6:30 that morning. And then the other part was the 1st Division, the Big Red, number 1, is the 1st Division. It was the oldest division in the United States Army. They were going to hit Omaha. And so the tide cooperated with us when we got there. But there's a story before I get there. The invasion was supposed to be on the 5th. We were loaded 4, 5, 6 days before that. We were on everybody was on those ships waiting. And ours was the LST and LCTIs. And what I was on was the LST, loaded with tanks and all the equipment necessary, because we were going to be the one to hit that beach first. And so then it started on the 3rd, and the night of the 4th, we still got in the ships and started to move. The English Channel was so mean. It's a body of water about 20-something miles across, 17 miles of Calais. That's where Hitler thought we would be coming in, and we fooled him. And thank goodness that he insisted on being the general, because the others was right, he was wrong. But anyway, it was so bad that Eisenhower pulled us back in to shore. And we were going to wait 24 hours. Then, the next afternoon, on the evening of the 5th, by 7 o'clock, they had to know in order to get those air troopers in the air. Now, he called in the weather people and so forth and said, now, what's the condition of the English Channel now? And they said it's better than it was yesterday, but it's mean yet. And the question was, are we going to go tomorrow on the 6th? And if it hadn't gone tomorrow, it would have been 40 to 60 days before they could have gone again. There's something about the tide that every so many months it comes in mass force. I can't tell you details, but that was the theory. So Eisenhower asked these questions, and you can see him turn around in the picture. And so he turned around and actually listened to what they had to say. go or not go. So he said, turned around and put his hand out like this, says, go. All right, the communication went out to the air troopers. They were going to drop 12 or 1 o'clock in front of us. And then we started moving. But we started moving at a slower pace. And then once we got off the course, off the coast of France, we either came to a stop about 2 o'clock in the morning, or we slowed down so slow that we just barely crawling. And so as these air troopers went over, they looked down and said, that's the 4th Division. They'll be landing here in 4 hours. We've got to drop and do our thing. And so that was where we were. And so then the morning of the 6th, way early, we made the move. Well, that night on the field. So we started. And we got in and did what we were supposed to do. And then when we got in, then we would come under enemy fire. And they gave us so many shots of things getting us ready to go. Man, I was so I just didn't have no, I just hurt. But when they started shooting at it was live ammunition. I forgot all about these. Now, I'm going to be fighting for my life from this time on. And the Germans had made the statement that they were going to fill up the English Channel with American soldiers' dead ones. And that was what we were facing. So when we left England, we had 4 objectives that was given to us. 4. For you Strike Force Division, 4th Infantry Division, first of all, you get from England to the coast of France and get on the shore. 1. Second, we would go in and take territory, and we fooled them Germans to no end. We would go in and take territory up to so that 300,000 could come in after us. In one day, we were supposed to take that much territory. We spearheaded now, and everybody else came in behind us and spread out like this too, see? And the more that came in, the bigger the beachhead got. So by nightfall, we would have, and we felt we did have. Then the third one was pick up the 82nd Royal Airborne Division. Let them know you're there. And that they have now right to the sea. Because these airborne troopers were used to going in, fighting, jumping right amongst us here, and fighting our way out and killing a bunch of us and taking that territory. Well, when they were dropped, they went over France, and those old airplanes didn't have radar, and they were C-47s, C-42s planes. And they all held about 30 with all the equipment. So they came over, and when they hit the coast of France, it was very cloudy. And they began to worry about having collisions up in the air. So they began to worry a little bit. So they did, and when they let those paratroopers out, which we didn't know till the next morning, many of those soldiers were dropped 25 miles off target. And many of them was dropped into the swamps and drowned. If you went in those swamps and died in, I don't know if anybody got out of the swamp. They may have been a few. But you went into the swamp, alligators and all that kind of stuff, saw to it that you didn't come out. But then so they didn't take their objectives. The 82nd was supposed to be over here on this side of St. Mary-Glise. If you go to France, you'll be there. Mm-hmm. That's headquarters of Normandy. And the 101st Airborne was on this side, and they were going to come in and take that town at nighttime, night fighting. And only one plane load of the 82nd landed right there. And so they disposed of their chutes, got everything camouflaged so they didn't know they were there. And they looked out and said, we can't do this. We outnumbered 20-something to 300 or 400. So they laid in the bushes until our 4th Infantry Division came along next day, up in the day. And they got out and joined them, and then that big bunch of the 82nd and the 4th Division cleaned out the tail. And so that was the story about that. So, but anyway, many of them got drowned on the coast.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you in St. Mary Glees, the city itself, yourself?
No, we skirted it.
Okay. The town that we're paired with is Carentan, which
Mhm.
is really close to
Yes.
St. Mary Glees.
Yes.
And one thing that I'm sure that our counterparts would like to know is if you ever saw Carentan at all.
Well, here's the route we took.
Okay.
That's the route that we took.
We'll be sure to get a picture.
Yes. And of course, this book is 70 years old. It tells the whole story of the war.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
So back, so when it come time for us to land, if we were to be the first, and we were on the beach going inland, and our tanks were waterproofed. We had sideboards on, an M7 tank has an open top on it, like back of a truck, with a 105 with a 50 caliber machine gun on it, and 10 soldiers with rifles. That's our equipment. So when we hit that beach, and they dropped that big old door and the ramp, and once we hit that water, it went into the water. As soon as we felt that tank hit the bottom, we come out there like a wild bunch of bulls. And we poured the coal on them tanks, and we kept them moving. And all the artillery and guns and all that was hitting our tank. Boom, bow, bang. But we hunkered down, and we went scurried them, and we outflanked them and outsmarted them. And we didn't fire a shot on the beach. But when we got behind the beach, then we stopped and took all the waterproofing off our tank, waterproofing off the gun, and the exhaust pipe was way up in the air. And our tank was equipped with an airplane engine, 9-cylinder airplane engine. And if that water got down in there, it would swamp the engine out, and you'd be stuck. So we took all that off. Now we're ready for battle. And all the tanks, and our infantry did not go in with us. The tanks went in first. Then we through communications, we told the infantry what to expect. Here, 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 there. And when they came in a fighting mood, and they come in, and we only lost 197 people on the beach on the invasion. By us keeping them informed, and we were ahead, and the tanks were going to the territory had to be taken by the tanks, and we went. And go back to the before we got to the end, the big one, the tide didn't cooperate with them. And if you've ever been to the ocean, you have high tide and low tide. And low tide, you can go 2 or 3 blocks out in the ocean. But you go high tide, you can't go near the window over there. So it didn't cooperate with them. So the boat can only take them to the end of the water. So they were taking them in they were supposed to land at 7:05. And they started. And when they got there, then they were killing them like flies. To try to get to the ocean, so they get hit or recover. So they asked us to stop. And so my tank crew and our 4 tanks at Battery C stopped. And then we were directed, they said, turn your tank toward Omaha. That's about 10 to 10:30 in the morning. To turn your tank toward there. And we were going to be directed, the fire would be directed from a surveillance plane, a Cub airplane that we used all during the war. This guy was going to, they had the 1st Division, you hunker down. Stay put. And we're going to light this place up around here. So they ordered that we each tank fire 40 rounds, prepare ammunition for 40 shells to be fired. And we had 4 of them. 4 times 40 is 160. So we got ready, they gave us the coordinates. Now we know to put the gun exactly. And a gun could only fire so wide. And if they want you to fire over here, you got to move the tank or over here. But we got it ready. And the guy said, fire 1. And everybody fired the first shot. And then he adjusted the fire. And I'm going to say up or down or east or west. And then he said, fire 2. And we were on target. He said, now fire perfect. We fired 38 rounds as fast as that tank would go. We'd go, boom! And while that recoil was coming, we'd take the old shell out and put the new one in. Boom, boom, till we had 40 to 38 more shells. And the Germans turned tail and backed out there and ran. Cleared it, and I gave the first division the space that people was coming in to either kill them all or to capture them. And so we had them on fire, and we were using phosphorus fire, and they eat you up. And so they were being killed, and they got out of there and didn't come back. And so First Division was just able to get on the beach before dark by our helping them. And we were blessed to be able to stop and share. But we were in enemy country when we stopped. Germans. But we had our machine gun up in the turret of the tank. And he was keeping a close eye for us while we worked feverishly to keep that ammunition. And that gun didn't miss a note till we got 40 rounds. And when we got through, the boys came over the radio and said, "Fellas, good job. Well done. Thank you." And so we sat there a few minutes and then said, "Now proceed on with your trip." And we left a pile of shell casing there, 40 here, 40 there, 40 there, 40 there, and we left them. So some Frenchmen later on got selling the scrap part, I guess. But anyway, we proceeded, and we went on, and we made our contact with the 82nd 101st Air, but the first little few of them, because they were scattered everywhere. And we didn't know this yet. So then we went on, and then the word got out between the few that they had a communication where they could tell others that, and the rumor was that the 4th Division didn't make it. But we did make it. And Eisenhower didn't have to do something. Eisenhower had in his pocket, on his possession, I have them, 2 letters. And he wasn't going to say that the 4th Division screwed up. He was just going to say that the beachhead was successful and everything's all right. That's what he relayed back to America. And the other one he had in his pocket said that we didn't make it. And he was taking the responsibility for not being able to do it. In other words, they pushed us back into the ocean. And they weren't going to push us back into the ocean. We were a bunch of mean suckers. And we were tough as we were mean. And so we did our job. So he never had to produce that second letter. But it's in print. And so then we went a little bit further that night. And then we had to set up protection. There's Germans here, there's Germans here, there's Germans over here. And hopefully behind us they're Americans. But we're not real sure of that. So we had to be on very high alert that night. So sometimes we had 3 guards at a time. We had 10 of us, and we spent a lot of guard time. And the other tanks were the same way. And so we got through the night, and tomorrow morning we got up, and then they announced that the 4th Division were now, instead of going to the 4th objective, now, we will go 3 days, and the 4th Division was split. One part would go toward the 82nd over here on this side of St. Mary Glace, and the 101st would go on this side, and I went on this side. And we were going to go out around there and clean that territory out with the Germans as best we could, fast as we could. And when we meet out here, when we now come together, we're through. Now, the people that's out there had set up their own outposts and take care of it. And here is where Private Ryan came in. Private Ryan was in the 101st Airborne Division, right in front of us. I don't know if I saw him or not, but he was out there. And then they come up and made that story, Private Ryan, and it's not real.
Yeah.
They made it for the movies. Them movie stars made millions of dollars out of it, but they took excerpts. And all they had to do was follow us in. All they had to do was go out to where we went in on Utah. We made the road. And everybody made that road and traveled it. And after a while, it was almost like a highway across the fields. And so that they knew that we were there. And so Private Ryan, when they got ready to go get him, and they fought across the fields with the cattle and the Germans in the barns and all that stuff, and it wasn't none of it true, because animals come to excitement, and most of them got killed. And they were showing them going through the fields and all that stuff, and all they had to do is come over and drive in behind us and go get the boy. But when they did go get it, he refused to go, and he was in that defense. He was going to stay there till his first division went out, and they didn't get him. But that's the beginning of Private Ride.
Mm-hmm.
And all they had to do is come in behind us and drive up through there and get him. Because we were close to him. I don't know how close we were, but we were right out there. And so they set up there and open pitches, and he said no, he wasn't going. And so the rest of the story, Private Ride. So after we met, then we were to take our fourth objective. 3 days later, that was the 10th of June. And so instead of going on the 7th day, that we would have done, we spent the time to help so the airborne troops could get together more readily. Now each one of them had a popping bug. We even had them. And when they landed, if I landed here by myself, after a little while, I decided I wanted to see where some of our soldiers are. And I'd pop that bug one time and stop. And I'd wait for about 15 to 20 seconds or maybe a minute. And then if there's somebody there, they would pop their bug twice. Pop, pop. And it sounded that loud, but it sounded like a bug. And then later, I know where you are and you know where I am. Now we can get together. And the more you have together, the more safer you are. But the funny thing was that when they landed, the German soldiers were on maneuvers there in Normandy. And so the paratroopers of the German army was on maneuvers. And they throw all kinds of things at you. So when our soldiers was landing and going, the Germans and Americans passed each other. They thought that they were Germans in American uniforms. And they were Americans passing by them. And I said, whew, I don't know where I'd like to be in there or not. But you could see some of these Americans in the movie. They looked back like this. They knew who it was. These were Germans. Look back and maybe speed up just a little bit so we could get behind. And that worked for a while until they found out that the Americans had actually dropped. Then now they went and started hunting for them. But the first 101st and the 82nd was supposed to take St. Mary's release. They didn't. But they did do a lot of harm and create chaos out there in the fields. The Germans were out there hunting them. And so they did help us to get on the beach. Then I found out something later, so if you go over there sometime, and you might want to see this. Up on Point de Hoc.
Okay.
The Germans had 5 big guns, 10 inchers. And they had dummies up there next to when they took pictures of them, they were dummies, logs sticking out from under the camouflage, looked like guns. So the Rangers, and there's some monument there about the Rangers. And if I ever go, I will go up there to pay my honor, because they probably saved all our lives. That big guns could have blown us at King of Club. So they went up there and started looking. They didn't find but dummy guns. So they looked, and those guns, if they had moved them, they were very heavy. They would have been tracks. Probably weighed 10, 15 tons apiece. They would have tracked. And so the Rangers had 2 objectives. To see to it that those guns were destroyed, which they didn't. And all those shell cases coming from the ships, where there was a hole here and here, then the Rangers went from this hole to this one to the second objective. They went to a crossroad. The crossroad went down into hedgerows. The hedgerows are little old fields so big, with a hedge and with bushes on top. That's what they use for fences. And they went down this way and went to the ocean, and this one went this way, went right by Omaha. And this one here was leading from Cherbourg. So they were to go there to that crossroad and were to destroy whatever it had to do to keep those soldiers, 7th Division, from coming this way to help annihilate us forces. And when they landed on the shore, they looked and said, we've got 30 minutes before the 4th Division is going to be landing here. Everybody knew we're our time schedule. So they did find it, but they went on to the second objective. The guns now yet they haven't found it. But you'll not this. When we was in school, you always have somebody that's always in trouble. They get in trouble till hell high water. Little things or big things. So when they got there, there's 2 soldiers took their guns, and they weren't interested in that crossroad. Now they was interested in what's down yonder. So 2 of them went down there. They went along, and you had to jump. The hedgerow was a little bit taller than their site, and they'd go along and jump. They'd go a little further and jump. And they went down about a quarter to half a mile, and they found the guns. And those guns were in an orchard, very carefully put under there. And right below there, there's at least 100 German soldiers waiting for the orders to start firing. They snuck in there, took their fusion grenades. They don't go pow, they go whoosh. So they put the fusion grenades in those breeches of those guns. And they didn't have enough. So one of these boys ran back up to the crossroads and said, we found the guns. They're down here. Give us your grenades. So they took them down there and finished putting them in those guns, and they set them off. And when those German soldiers were told that, okay, start firing, they come up here to start using those guns, and they couldn't use them. And those guns never killed nobody. They never destroyed anybody or killed anybody. And they would have been blowing us off the beach coming in. Big old gun that big around. And when I found out, I got weak kneed and trembled. And I said, if I ever go there, I'm going to go up there and say a prayer.
Well, we might be able to go
And
see
there's a
that.
monument up there built for those Rangers. And it was so situated, those guns were so situated that they could either fire on Utah or Omaha. And they would have been tearing us all to pieces. But they never killed one person, never was fired. So the French people later either sold them for scrap iron, or they took them back to their arsenal and repaired them and used them. I don't know. But thank goodness for those Rangers. And I actually got trembling in my knees when I found out they were there. That them others up there wasn't real, but them 2 nosy soldiers found them and destroyed them. While the other guys was finishing up their defenses on that crossroad. So as to what happened at the crossroad, I don't know. But they were there doing their job. But they did destroy the guns, those 2 nosy ones. And I said, in my principalship, I've had a bunch of them. Always in trouble, nosy little cussies or big cussies, don't mean a lot, like Pearl Alexander and others. Man, they'd die if they wouldn't get into something. But they found those guns and destroyed them. And so now that's, you want me to stop now and you?
Yeah, that'll be good.
What was your first impression whenever you unloaded from the boats?
Scared. I was scared. Because we didn't know that. That's when we landed in Liverpool, I was scared. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I would be with or anything. But then immediately after we landed, and we got to the tent city, then they assigned me to the 4th because they were waiting on us artillery guys. They were short. And they had to have the people who knew how to use the artillery pieces and the guns. And these other guys knew a little bit, but they knew more about the tank and that process. And once we got there, now we're ready for the invasion. And that's when Eisenhower announced, now we're ready.
Okay. Did you ever meet any French civilians whenever you were there?
Civilians? No, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's it.
Is that it?
I never saw an English person. All that was in southern England were us soldiers ready for the war. Equipment, supplies, that's all was there. Now they had to sit in villages, and I'm sure that somebody was the keepers of those, men or women. I never saw anybody. Never saw an English person while I was in England.
Okay.
Well, I'll take it back. Some people that helped unload the ship,
Okay.
seamen.
Mhm.
But other than that, I didn't see anybody. As if to say, I passed through England, I wasn't even there, or
Mhm.
was. We got there, we left the States on May the 23rd. 7 days later, and that leaves us only about 5 days before the invasion. And then they took us to southern England, and then on the 5th, we made that initial, and they brought us back. Yes.
All right, here we go.
All right, after we met with the, out here, and had that church all cleaned out for the 82nd and 1st Airborne to more readily get together, then we went to our fourth objective. And this fourth objective was to go take that seaport at Cherbourg. We had no seaports yet. We were unloading out in the middle of the ocean on that platform that they built old England and brought it out there, and it was a flotilla, and they used that thing for a long time, and it was very successful. But then you had to do this and this and this. So now they wanted us to take that seaport. And they said, we want you, to, if at all possible, 4th Division, we want you to have it by June the 30th. And that was my father's birthday, and it brought memories. So with the help of the 9th Division, the 4th Division was going to be over next to the English Channel, where all the pillboxes and the bunkers were. We had the armor to do it. A few times we had to ask for bigger guns to help us. We couldn't handle one or two of them. So we asked for the bigger guns to fire over our heads. We heard shells coming and they blew it up with 155s. And so we were to be next to the ocean. And next to us, the divisions that came in behind us, we don't know for sure who was what and when. But as soon as the 4th Division ended, the next division came. 79th came in, the 20th Division came in, the 9th Division. I'm not sure when they got there. But when we made that trip to clear the space, we didn't always go do that until that next morning. So then we moved away from them. Now you're on your own. So they put up their old bodyguard out there, the 1st, 82nd. And our 4th Division now was back together. And we moved back toward where we came from. And from the beach, we were next to the ocean, and that was our position. The 9th was a ground unit, and the 79th was a ground unit. So we set up a strategy that when we started, we had 7 divisions to go through. And that's a lot of going through. 1 division, and we were spearheading it. And so we were stair-stepped. 4th is up here. The 9th was right here, and the 79th was here, stair-stepped. And we did that on purpose, so that as many Germans could escape as possible. Because when we got ready to get that seaport, we didn't want to fight the Germans there. We wanted to be gone. We'll get them later. And it worked. But we had to still go through those 7 divisions. And we lost 5,000 going to get to Cherbourg Harbor. 4th Division lost 5,000. I don't know how many in the 9th and 79th, but we lost 5,000. And D-Day plus 17, I received my first injury. We just been there 17 days and I got injured. And I mean, I didn't know I was so beat up. I was tore all pieces. I was paralyzed for 10 days. Couldn't move the lower extremities at all. And I wondered why an 18-year-old kid, 18 plus, couldn't move. My head said I'm moving, I looked down, nothing moving down here. And so, and in so doing, I got hurt with my own equipment. When we came on this heavy artillery attack from the Germans, they pinned us down, and I had this big old radio on my back. It weighed 90 pounds. The batteries weighed 90 pounds. And the radio part weighed 45 pounds. You put them together, put up the antenna, and then you're ready to call in on the enemy, artillery fire. And that thing got me down when they said, get down, incoming. And that means they were sheltered with mortars and artillery. And they just kept firing. And that thing got me down and rolled me. And when I landed, I was on top of the radio and it was underneath me. But prior to this, backing up just a penny's worth, I'd already been up front of the depot party one time already for 5 days, one term. And I got back to my battery and I was okay. I made it. But the second time they come back in a few days, he said, Wilson, they want you up front. I said, I just left up there 2 or 3 days before. They said, but I still had to go. On the 22nd, I went back. Jumped on the Jeep and went back. In a day and 1 hour, my life was changed forever. I couldn't climb on a Jeep, I couldn't jump over a fence or anything that I had been able to do. I no longer can do it. And then I went through this injury. But just before this was the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen or heard. But none of the boys had done any bayonet training. So they announced at 4 o'clock on that evening the 22nd. Tomorrow morning we're going in and kill all them Germans in their sleep with bayonets. Your guns will be unloaded and the breeches will be checked, clips will be taken out. There's no way that you could give your position away. And I heard that, and these boys took out their whetstone. They had a whetstone in their pocket. I didn't know they had an issue with that, but they did. They took that bayonet and began to whet it. They feel and wet, ready for that invasion tomorrow morning with bayonets, fixed bayonets. They hadn't yet done this. And the more the closer I didn't have bayonet training, and I was carrying a Tommy gun, and so I carried it. If you carried your regular rifle, that old thing was here, and every time you take a walk, that gun hits you right on the knee, and you had the sorest knee, and I found a Tommy gun on the field and checked it out. It worked. And I would swing it way down here beside of me. And that's what I had. And so, as the night came on, you might see another soldier go back and pull that bayonet out again, touch it up a little bit more to make sure it's ready. They put it in the sheath. So tomorrow morning, way before daylight, they called and said, let's go. I got that old big radio and I was scared to death. I was stiff as a poker. And I got that radio on my back and I wasn't normal. I couldn't handle it. But I had it. And so we went in and the Germans was planning to move out the same time we were planning to go in and kill them with bayonets. But we got in there, even though we got in there and found out, but praise the Lord, we didn't have to kill nobody. But I was teetotally stiff as a poker. I mean, I was almost to the place where I was paralyzed. I was so scared. And they hunted and searched all over that place. But if they had been there, there was no way we was going to kill all those Germans with fixed bayonets at one time. And those Germans over there that had guns and ammunition, if we hadn't gotten them, they'd be killing us like flies. Sit ducks. But I was... So after they got through, then they said, reload your guns and so forth. Be ready to move out in 30 minutes. Well, time came, and you just don't go from high to low, from high to average. So we started out, and I said, I'm not normal. And then nobody else was either. And it was a big relief, but even the soldiers that had the bayonets, they hadn't killed anybody yet with fixed bayonets. But they were going to, and that officer said that's what we're going to do, and he meant it. And we proceeded to go through, but when they got in there, they didn't find not one German. They'd all moved out, moved back towards Germany. So then that's when the shelling came. And when I tried to get down, get that 90-pound radio, and me secured, because you're responsible for what you have. And that thing rolled me. And then I was just helpless, laying there, and just like this. It was strapped to my waist here and over my shoulders. I was just laying there, looking up. Thank goodness they did change the sights on the guns. They were popping here and here and here, all around me. But they didn't. The shell didn't hit me. But if they'd moved it, they'd have blown me to kingdom come. So after the shelling was over, the lieutenant saw that I was in trouble. So he came down where I was, and he looked at me and said, you're hurt bad. I could tell, look. I said, well, I'll try to shake it off. And so in a minute or two, he called motion for the other soldier to come down. So they got me loose from that radio. Pulled me up so I'm sitting against it, leaning back against it, trying to get my feeling back. And I sat there and I tried to do everything I could. And directly they came down and pulled me up on my feet before I could just stand there. I wasn't able to do anything. I was just standing there. So then he had to make a decision. And he did give me a chance to see if I could go on, and I couldn't. And so in reality, they called in for a battalion to send a replacement to take care of me. And when the Jeep got there, to bring the replacement, so now the Army can go on in and take care of it. It was only about a mile and a half out. We could see it very plainly, but I never got there. So they loaded me back on, and when they brought the new boy up, he said, here's your replacement. We'll go back and get your injuries, plural, taken care of. So the time I got back there, battalion had called the medics, and they were there, ready to take it. My crew didn't know what had happened. And so they all met there, and when they pulled in, they saw a basket case. So they proceeded to get me out the Jeep, got me standing up, leaning against the Jeep. And then he proceeded to try to figure out what's wrong with me. And he take me up, gave me some pills. Never was sent back to a hospital or field hospital. I lay on my sleeping bag on the ground for 10 days, right beside the tank, till I was able to start getting some feeling back in my legs. But all along I thought I said, I'm walking. I looked down, I wasn't doing anything. The spine had been cut off from here, the spine was broken. And I didn't find that out till after I got home, after the war was over. And I always wondered why an 18-year-old can't bounce back from that. And and then while we were there, when I got better, we'd lost 5,000 men now coming to this point. So I had to have some help. So I went out and found 2 American soldiers laying real close to me. I scooted and got 2 of them. And I took their web belts off. They carried their equipment on. And they fastened quickly to fit your body. So I took 2 of them with honor. They no longer needed them. And I said to myself, if this was me, I would hope that somebody would take my stuff if they could use it for their good. So I took the 2 belts and I put one down here low and the other one high. From that time, the rest of the war, when it even got better, I still wear belts today, when I'm working, I have to have. And each time I was wounded in the backside. Each time I was up front with the enemy and the forward observer team. And when you get down, put your head down between your legs, when you cover up your heart and your head, and the butt sticks up. Each time I was wounded in the backside. And I've had a lot of trouble with it. And But anyway, that happened. And I never was in Sherbrooke, but then 35 more days, they announced that Sherbrooke Harbor had been taken. And so the 4th Infantry Division Infantry, the 9th Division Infantry moved all up, and the 79th moved up, and they went in and cleaned out the whole city, street by street, house to house. They killed all those that had to be killed, and they took the rest of them prisoner. And the ones they had to kill was those children that had been raised under Hitler's camp, taken from the women that they had in those, they had breeding camps. They'd pick out girls, women, and you would be forced to be bear children. And they had a place, they had big guys, we liberated a bunch of them. And so they'd take those children away from the mother. In time or two, we stopped and went in one of those places. And so some of the women had just lost their child, a baby, and it was important to them. They were crying. Some yet hadn't had the babies yet. And then America took over. And as to what happened after that, I don't know. But those children that was raised in the Hitler camps, we had to kill every one of them. They had been positioned to be Hitler's soldiers, and they were mean people. I don't think that there's one, I don't know of any of them, but they had to kill all those. Maybe one or two of them might have surrendered and went out with the others into a temporary prison camp. But then, about 9 days after they announced this, they brought in the frogmen, and everybody who had part of getting that, checking that seaport ready, secret ready. If they're not explosives on these, definitely the Navy frogmen was there. They announced it was ready. So about 9 days, they started unloading there. Supplies and gasoline, that's really speeded up the war. And by that time, the French people then began to realize that it's a true invasion. There's too much territory that's been taken. And so they woke up to themselves, and they decided that now they'd come back and work on the railroads and do these things and so forth. And it'd been long enough that there wasn't going to be another Dunkirk. If they had to run us back in the sea, they had to kill all them Frenchmen that had to do and work with us. And there's some stories about some of the Catholic people up in those, there's some stories there that the Germans found out they were aiding and abetting us, and they went and killed them all. You'll see it. If you haven't seen it already, you will. And but they even took it in those boats. They would come in. They went in and out of those swamp areas to this building, and they would use the boats, and they'd go along and pick up the ammunition that had been dropped or guns that had been dropped and put them underneath the boat and cover them over, and they caught them, and they killed every one of them in that village for helping them. And they would do that, but once the French decided that this was the way it's going to be, now we're going to get in there and done. So we built engines here in America to fit railroad engines here in America to fit the French railroad tracks. And I met one of the guys that drove that first railroad engine from the barge onto the coast of France. Now they were going to start, the French was working on the railroads, and they would use the railroad trains to take its stuff as far as they could go. And as the front went farther, they'd go farther. And that speeded up the war to no end. You didn't see us sitting waiting on fuel. And some of the pictures I have here, when we took those, we were sitting waiting on gasoline. And so it speeded up. The war was really blessed by doing this. So after Cherbourg then, they moved us back. We fought in the hedgerows. Then while our infantry was fighting there in town, we were helping some of the other outfits that was in the hedgerows. They were having a hard time. And we fired, we could reach all over the place with the hedgerows. And we set back our firing our artillery shells to help them out. Then we got back together. And then we began to fight in there by ourselves. Then, all of a sudden, they decided to pull us out. Put us in a place where that had been taken. We didn't know why yet. And Patton was getting ready to come ashore. I don't know if you all know about Patton and why he didn't go on shore on D-Day. Do you all know about it?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I do. While Patton was in Italy, he was a hot-headed fellow. He's just plain old ugly at times, but he's a good general. But he would sacrifice your life in a minute for glory. So he was in Italy, and he went to a hospital. This soldier laying right there, he began to complain to Patton. And he took them leather gloves out of his pocket and just slapped him real good across the face like that, right across his face. And it's in print, and you'll read about it or you can see it. He slapped him real good, and the Eisenhower had to punish him. So they made him the general. He and his Third Army was the general of that Phantom Army over in, that had the paper tanks. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what he did till after the invasion. Then Hitler missed it, but he fell for it. And they had these paper tanks, and these Third Army guys was in there walking them things. Cardboard. They looked real, painted real, and everything. They had sounds recorded. This was coming from the English side, and that's where he was. Then after that was over, then he was training his soldiers to come in. So they authorized him to come into France on July the 23rd or the 24th. I've got two dates there I get mixed up in. One of those dates was that the generals that was on Normandy, the German generals, they planned right then to kill Hitler. And Hitler had them in a bunker for a meeting. They set up charges underneath this table here. They would set those charges off and kill Hitler. Well, they didn't kill him. The pedestal of the table protected him. It's in print, all over, it's everywhere if you see it. And they didn't do that, so that happened one of the 2 days. And the other day was, we made a quarter for Pat to come through to get to us. And he got to us when we was at St. Lo. We were just getting out of Normandy. Now, St. Lo's there. And there's when the Americans came over with all them bombers and bombed that place off the earth. Because that was the German headquarters. They kept coming in waves from England. And they were dropping them by smoke. And the smoke drifted, and they got a few of Americans wounded or killed. Until they got notified, back up, you're getting Americans. So after this thing was over, now, while we were in this position, backing up just a penny's worth, on July the 12th, our tank driver he received both legs, he got both legs blown off with a mine, bounced a Betty mine, and he jumped out of there and killed it, and cut his legs off, one completely and the other hanging on by a shoestring, figuratively speaking, just a piece of hide. So then we had to go, there was no bombers coming over, Germans, there were no shells coming in. But we looked, and he had gone out to help, we was in a new position. And he was out helping the gunner put up the aiming stakes. The rest of us was very busy. We had 150 rounds of ammunition we were going to shoot. And we were all very busy, so he volunteered to help the gunner. So he went out and you put 2 stakes. You have the sight on that, there's the sight right there. And then the gunner looks through and you drive the first one. Then the gunner will bring you in line so that all 3 of those objects are together. And that's what they shoot from, is the aiming stakes from the tank. And each time it fires, he brings her back, makes sure it's on target, because you could be shooting someplace else if you didn't. So then we heard this big explosion. And 3 of us went sailing through to get him. I wasn't the first, but I was in the middle. And I don't know who was the first, I don't know who was the last, but I know where I was. And when the first one went, we had just parked. Now, whether that was the beginning of a minefield where he was, we don't know. But we always was looking for mines, tripwires and things. You had to have a lot of vision, and you had to be concentrated always on the war. So we went sailing to him. The guy in front we went hard. And where he stepped, I stepped right in his tracks. And the boy behind me, he stepped in my tracks. Now we got there. And then we put tourniquets on him so he wouldn't bleed to death, because both legs he would have bled out in 30 minutes or less. So we got tourniquets on him. And we used every sort of drug that we had on the part that's blown away. And then the Jeep came to get him. And we had to take a minesweeper and sweep so that the Jeep would not be hitting the mine. And once we got it so that we could get back the Jeep in there and load him up on an ambulance Jeep, then they left him. And then we won, and we knew he got hurt. But we couldn't linger on it. You cannot take a mindset. If you do, you all won't get killed. So we never thought any more about it. We wondered in their own mind, but we never talked about it. So I never knew where they took him or anything about it, never knew anything about it from there on. But then immediately, I had driven an M7 tank in England from Fort Sill. I was the truck driver pulling our tanks, guns, split trail guns in Fort Sill. So then they brought in M7s and M5s. M5 is a prime mover that has track, but it pulls the gun. And the M7 is a self-propelled gun. It's on the tank. So that was what we went in on the invasion with, the M7. So after he got his legs blown off, we had never dreamed that he had driven all the time back in the States. He drove the tank in England when we got there on planning and finalizing the invasion from, and as I said, that the Germans stuck in and killed some of the 4th Division. He was our driver. He was the driver on the invasion. When we dropped the ramp, he was the one that drove it into the water. He drove us, and he drove us till we got out there almost out of Normandy. And that's when he ran into that trouble. So it's on the 12th, and on the next time that the tank was driven, I am now the driver of the tank. As soon as I found out what happened, I had helped him some about greasing tracks and this and that and the other. So I went to the tank and just by myself, and I began to just look it over. Opened up the back so checking the radial engine, closed it up, just walked around it, then I crawled up into the tank and sat down in the seat. And I began to manipulate because I knew 2 days later I would be at the controls. And I was from that day on. So right after St. Lo, we had driven our tank up to that point. That's the first time I had driven it there, but I had some experience. I knew enough to do it. And I had to, because every person in a tank has to know all the jobs of the tank. Okay. Now we have to start again. The tank driver got his legs broken off, and we processed and got him out of there. Hopefully he lived. And I was able then to start checking out the tank ready for the next move. And the next time it's driven, I am the new driver, and I'm to drive the tank the rest of the war. And I was able to do that through all the battles: Battle of Hurtgen Forest, Battle of Bulge, Battle of the Rhine, Battle of Luxembourg. I was the driver, and I was able to keep our tank crew together. But we found out why when we pulled up our close where they were bombing that town off St. Lo. They bombed that place off the earth. And then the moment they had already told us that we would be leading Patton to Germany. Patton is there. And he requested, he read what we had done in Normandy. We were never defeated. The 4th Division was never defeated in the war by German Union. They chewed us up a few times very badly. Such as later I'll tell you how many we lost in the Hurtgen forces. It's a big number. And I was part of it. But anyway, after the bombing was over, then the word came down, 4th Division, let's go to Germany. We had been told now we were going to lead, the 4th Division was going to lead Patton from now till the end, till he got to Germany. And he's supposed to release us, but he didn't. We stayed with him forever. So then the moment it was over, they said, let's go. So we fired up that engine, and I was doing my thing. And I was getting the feeling, get the feeling of what I hadn't done for a long time. And so it didn't take me long till I was back. But every soldier in that tank has to know all the jobs. And 2 of you get killed, we got to speed it up and get faster and better. And the tank can never stop. And so, and then they said, let's go. So we started, the time we got through all the rubble, running through the rubble, pushing it out of our way and doing this and this, then we were out in the open. And so we were to lead Patton. And always there was 4 M7s leading it, because we were the fastest tank in the United States services. And he planned that after he saw that we had never been defeated, and he said, I want the 4th Division to lead me. And so we did. So as we left there, I'm getting the feel of the tank more and more and more, and I had got the feel, but I didn't drive it much in Oklahoma. But I drove it long enough that I knew now what I had to do, because I was the only one that could do it. And so we started, and we went in every town, here and here, any town we were supposed to go in and take it, we did. And we were now on that route from, you saw in the book there, you can see it more directly. We were on that route. And so we went through town visits. Of course, we had to start initial from the beach. We had to take 1 foot at a time, 1 yard, town, then towns. But now we're out there. And now we're going to liberate Paris. Or we're going to go into the place where the Italy would come in and liberate it. So we were going full steam ahead. And that slogan I told you about the backside of the German, next to our front side, we were making sure that they get on us. And we kept on moving and moving and moving. So we got outside of Paris. And we were there 3 or 4 or 5 days, sleeping in this man's wheat field. And he'd already cut his shocks of wheat, and we tore them shocks down and slept in them. That was our bed for the time we were there. So on August the 24th, tomorrow's my birthday. And on the afternoon of the 24th, they announced that de Gaulle had got in touch with Eisenhower, and he had heard some stuff from the underground that he wanted to get into Paris. And so Eisenhower told him, well, the force is busy sitting out there, just let them do it. So they announced on the afternoon of the 24th that tomorrow morning you shall go in and liberate Paris, France. And the first time in history that an artillery tank unit went in and liberated the city. So the next morning at 6 o'clock, I've got some pictures there. So I was waiting for the command because I was going to be leading on that one route there. And they were going to give us a signal to start engines and just go. So the next morning, all of a sudden it said it's time to go. So we started pulling out. We uncovered all the white stars on our tank. In battle, we keep them covered because the white star shows up and brings the enemy to you. You don't do that. But now we want to be seen because we were going to be pushing them Germans out of there. And we were going to come in and occupy. Now, those French people had been under captivity for 4.5 years. Now, within a matter of an hour or two, they didn't know we were doing this. The French people didn't. But they were watching the Germans go out. The Germans were moving, some of the people was watching them. That's way out in the suburbs. And they were there. They were keeping an eye on them Germans. Then all of a sudden they turned around and saw them big white stars coming right behind them. And they realized that the Americans are right here. 1 minute or within 5 minutes, they were under German rule 5 minutes ago. And now they're free, as long as they don't go crazy. we would have had to straighten them out in their own country. So we went, and what I did, there's a time when you give honor to the enemy. For instance, I picked up the speed that they were going. And I settled in on that speed so I didn't gain on them. And they kept looking back to see if I was going to do that. And they saw that I was going to give honor. And you know, we went into Paris and did fire shot. We took Paris. And we were in the heart of the city at 12 o'clock. Right in next to the Notre Dame Cathedral and the Eiffel Tower and those places right there. And there were so many French people that finally found out that it was us coming. And back that first time, we were out in the country, suburbs. And so I had enough film in my camera, and I saw there was 2 girls on the way in. I'll show it to you. And they were banging me, and here I come about 2 or 3 miles an hour. And they were looking like this, and looking at me, and just say, "Here we are." So I handed my camera up to somebody up there, and I said, "Take them 2 girls' pictures. I want their pictures. And when I get up there, I'm going to slow down and stop, and you drag them in the tank, because them women belong to me." Of course, we couldn't do that, see. But
Made a fun story anyway.
and anyway, it was a story they thought about, and I see the pictures today, and I go back and I say it again. I told them boys to pick them girls up and drag them in the tank, and they didn't do what I told them to do. So we got in the heart of the city, and my tank, where I drive right here, is right next to the track. And I was looking down, and I said, I can't go any further. If I turn one more track, I'm going to crush people. So I told, I could go all day long. My commander and I could go all day long and never speak to each other. We did it through touch and feel. And I gave him a signal, I can't go any further. He looked down, and they were right there. And so he gave me a stop sign, and I stopped that sucker to take rock like this a time or two. And then there's where it sat for 4 days. And that was on the 25th. That night, and they danced out on the street, celebrated 24 hours a day for 4 days. And on the evening of the 28th, they announced that we are to go pull out in the morning. But we were supposed to march in that victory parade. But we were grubby looking. Our tanks were dirty. And our clothes, fact, we had 2 sets of these breeches. Our clothes was never washed from D-Day to the end of the war. We had, if a dry, dirty pair got wet, you take the dry, wet ones off and hang them somewhere and let them dry. And you put the dirty ones back on. And we slept in those clothes and our shoes because we had to be able to move within 2 minutes any given time. But we had one thing we made sure we never lost. That was a big old skillet that we had found back in France. Big old iron skillet. And buddy, we used that sucker. And if there's an animal out there that hadn't been killed, we killed it and ate it. And when we got into Germany where there's potatoes and things, we go out and dig bushels of potatoes and fry them in that skillet. If anything was left, that skillet was never left. If anybody was missing and got left behind, it would be a soldier, not that skillet. That skillet was something. So while we were there, Patton was in on this. They didn't say what the committee, who they were. But they deemed that we were too grubby looking to march in the parade in Paris. That's the truth. It's in print. And they sent us on to fight. We were never too grubby to fight the Germans. And they called us the Terrible Green Cross. That was our nickname. And we were never too grubby. The dirtier we was, I guess the meaner we looked. Because we were a bunch of mean suckers. And so they sent us on. We didn't get to see the parade. We did march in it. They had a 128th Division coming through to go up into Belgium to get some experience being in the battle area, even though they weren't going to be fighting. They marched in our stead. And we were almost into Belgium. So we went north to northeast. We left there. And then barred true right eastwardly. And on September the 5th, we took Patton into Belgium for the first American troops into Belgium. And we went through the lower quadrant of Belgium, and that was going to lead us through into Germany. And then the Belgian freedom fighters knew all about where and how when they had the guards coming by and all that. This was in an area where it wasn't heavily fortified, but it was. But they had patrols there. And they would run those patrols there. Everything was okay. So they tuned us in so we could go in between when the guards came by. So in 5 days then, we stayed in Belgium for 5 days. We entered September the 5th. 5 days later, on the 10th, we took Patton into Germany, first American troops into Germany. We took him into Paris. We took him into Belgium. We took him into Germany. Now we're in Germany, up there. And them Germans found out where we were, and they brought off this bunch of soldiers here sort of fight us. And we did not back up at all. From that day on, there was American troops into Germany. Then later they started moving in ground forces where we are. And then they back us out. And we got so we could take bulldozer blade on the front and build up over those obstacles through the Siegfried line, the whole obstacles that you got up on the tank would not go across them. You get stuck on them and they blow you to King's Cup. So we learned how to build roads on top of it. And so we went through the Siegfried line at least 6 to 10 times. Then we had enough soldiers on that side of the Siegfried lines ready to go to the Rhine River. And that was the goal. And so we were allowed to stay. So then Patton was supposed to free us there, but he didn't. We stayed right on with him. And then after we got enough soldiers there, then all of a sudden, we were there, that was in September 10th. And then on November, we had done some fighting in there. And the boy that they honored in Paris the other day, Cord boy, Omar Cord, I was over there. And I found out he was in Belgium when he was killed, supposedly. But I think it wasn't. I think he got killed in the Herkton Forest. And they brought him there and buried him. Because it didn't add up. I went in Belgium on September 5th. He was killed there on November the 25th, 6th. And before he was 19, he gave his life. And he was on the invasion force, and he went into Paris, and I said, that's funny. He had to be with our outfit. So I asked what outfit he was in, and he said he was in the 4th Infantry Division. So we were side by side. He was in the 8th Infantry Regiment, and I was in the 12th. And so, but anyway, so he may have gotten killed in the Herkton Forest. So leading up to the Herkton Forest was one of the bloodiest battle of the war coming up. So then all of a sudden when we got through, we had some time in there from September the 10th until November the 6th. And they, in secrecy, they pulled us in to take his highlands, the forest that overlooked the Ruhr Valley, the Ruhr Dam, and the German plains. And whoever had that control had control of Germany. So we went in. And the 4th Division was there. And you had to walk in. The mountain was so steep with trees planted all over it. And if Hitler had stopped when he got Germany to be a rich country, with all the trees and the things he did, if he hadn't gone into craziness, he would turn out to be a great leader of Germany. But then when he started conquering, then that was something else. So, but anyway, they wanted us to go and take out Herkton Forest. We went in on the 6th. We went for a whole day. We didn't see nothing but beautiful pine trees, and I don't know if you people are too young, but years ago you could take it out here in the country and call check planning. You could stand here and plow this way or this way, and they call it check farming. So they had those trees that way. You go walk, as we walked in, beautiful. We marveled, and we went till almost that afternoon, about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And all of a sudden the ground opened up and they began to kill us. But when they planted that forest, they had put underground bunkers in there, and you could not see them. They were down under, and then all of a sudden, the trap door just opened up and the machine guns began to kill us. They were killing 25 to 30 to nothing. Until we found out and then from there on it was very slow. But then later, on the 16th, about the boy there, they brought in the rest of the 4th Division to help us. The 8th the Infantry Regiment and the 22nd and the 44th, they were all there to help us finish it up. So on the 16th, his outfit was with us. So he may have gotten killed there, and they took him back and buried him in about 25, 30 miles. And they had the picture of him there, and they finally found out 3 years ago where it was. And then they had this honor over the other day, and I was there. Then they found out, then I talked in this week's Mercury. They have a little article of what I said in the paper about the family. And I was glad to know I was close to him in battle. And so, but anyway, we went into Herkton Forest. And while we were there, and we were there 5 weeks, 4 weeks, and we were supposed to stay 5 days. And they called it a turn. And a new team would come and push you out, take your position, and you'd go back. Nobody came to relieve us. So the first week went on, we was in heavy battle. And then the second week, the lieutenant finally said, where is our relief? We haven't had any. They said, we can't get nobody in to relieve you. And that meant we were there to the duration. So on the 5th week, the week was up, tomorrow I think, and the lieutenant gave his life there in the Herkton Forest, actually. And he got me, and the other boy got all 3 of us. And we come under a heavy artillery attack. They located us, and now they had radar. And we didn't move quick enough to get that thing cut off. quick enough. And so I was wounded, and here's what had happened. On 1:30, they opened fire upon us on the 6th. And so I was wounded and bleeding, unconscious and buried, all at the same time. And an infantry boy came by who, we had been there long enough, they got to know us. With 5 weeks, and usually you stay one. So he come by, looked down, and found me buried underneath all those treetops, and limbs, and whatever else was there. So he ran back down to his infantry buddies, said, "Come up here and help me. We got one of our American soldiers up here, the artillery guys, and he's unconscious and bleeding, and he's buried. Come up here and help me get all this stuff off of him. Even though he may be dead, he don't deserve to have this on him." And so they came up and threw it all off of me, and I was unconscious from 1:30 to 6. Had just enough air in my body just to survive, and if it had gone through the night, I would have been dead the next morning. But he came, and when they got that off me, I was still in that position with my head down between my legs, so my heart was protected by my thighs, and my butt was still sticking up. The second time. Second time that butt got hit. And then when I finally started making signs, showing signs, he had done everything he could do. And I could hear no crazy noises. But it was me. I was gone. But I could hear noises that sounded crazy. And as I started coming back, he noticed me, and he had already taken my helmet off me so I wouldn't choke to death. Should I start breathing? He undid the strap here, took it off and laid it over to the side. And he stayed with me, thick and thin, till I was brought around. And every time when I started to move, you'd feel that big hand get a hold of my shoulder and just give me strength to try to get up. At first I couldn't even raise my head up. And I kept trying and trying and trying, and finally I was able to get my head up. Then then I just sat there for a minute, or I was still in position but had my head up. But I had no control. So he stayed with me and stayed with me. And then as I showed a little bit more signs, and then later those sounds began to, that other soldier that he was wounded in the knee and the thigh. And the lieutenant, of course, said that he was dead. So when I finally got to a place where I could sit up, it took me a long time to do this. And once you've been hit like that and knocked out so quickly, I don't think you ever write anymore. I think that's part of my reason today. I'm crazy. But anyway, I finally made it up, and with his help. And when I got to the place where I could get up and start to talk, I could mutter. I said, "Look in my back of my shirt and see what's wrong with me." And he looked down and said, "You've been hit awful hard back there, and you're bleeding, but it's bloody red, as if there's some corpuscles were coming to my aid." And I had big old welts that big, and I was hurting, but I wasn't hurting that much yet because I've been unconscious. And so anyway, I heard what he said. I said, "Okay," to myself, I guess. And so we kept on and on, and finally I was able to get up on my knees. And then I had made a big effort because I had been trying so hard to get up. And then finally, after that happened, there was a tree right there. All them trees was everywhere. And as we went through the forest, you could look up and couldn't even see the sun. They were so thick. I mean, they just overlapped each other. Beautiful place. But then when we left there, it wasn't so beautiful. So anyway, he finally kept going till in the meantime, he had that hand on me, boy, just give me all the strength he could give me. And I was able to get on my feet. And then the sound that I'd been hearing, it sounded like a dying calf or something, wasn't human. But then it became human because I am now coming back. And I found out, and the reason that I was where I was, we were a team of 3, the lieutenant and 2 pack mule soldiers, I call us. We were the radio people. We carried the things, set it up and took it down. And then we used our eyes to help him to spot the enemy. So anyway, I said, I need to go over there. So I had gone up to the restroom. And I just stood up for a few minutes just looking at the trees. Then I started back, and I was real close to them, but I didn't know how close. Then they began to shell us. And them trees was exploding, and every tree was a missile. Them limbs was flying everywhere. And if it exploded in a tree, that thing just went like that. And the thing that knocked me out was a piece of tree about this long, about this big around, and it came sideways. And the force behind it sent that thing just like a missile. And it caught me right on the back, and was laying right on the back of my legs here. When they took all that debris off of me, then later they showed it to me. The first shall be last. And there it was. That was the thing that got me. So I said to him, I said, well, take me over. I know now that I was with them. Now I've got to find out my crew. I had just enough sense with the training I had in the Army that I had to do some things. And I was doing it substandardly. Half or less on horsepower and brain power. I said, take me over, and he helped me, almost carried me over around 2 or 3 trees, and there was and the first thing I saw the other boy, and he was hit here and here, but he wasn't unconscious any time. He was conscious all the time. And that's where I was hearing them noises. So we saw what it was, and I pulled my shirt apart, and I told the other boy, take your knife and cut my undershirt, just right here, cut it from here all the way down, and we'll make a tourniquet out of that. And the old dirty undershirt, it had never been moist. Well, maybe the undershirt might have been moist, but the others wasn't. So we put a tourniquet on him above the wound, and that cut the blood supply down. It wasn't an artery, but he was bleeding pretty profusely. Whether he had tried to help himself a while, I don't know, but we found him to be bleeding pretty badly. So we put that tourniquet on him. Then, and it cut the supply, but we had to watch it now. Within 5 minutes, we had to release that and let the blood come again. So I said, I've been watching for the lieutenant. He's laying right there. I said, move me over to the slough. Let me see the lieutenant. And he had been killed and shot right between the eyes with a piece of shrapnel. He was dead as a mackerel. I reached down, felt it. I said, okay, I can't do anything for him. But before we left there, the medic came by, and on the boy had the wounded leg. He put one of his real tourniquets on. And he used a new procedure that then he started, while the tourniquet was on, he began to wrap the wound. Great big bandage. Then he turned the tourniquet loose, and it helped. And we didn't have to worry about the tourniquet anymore. So I said, take me down to your lieutenant. I said, they didn't know that they didn't have artillery support. Because I'd been gone from 1:30, and we'd all been done. And they got us all 3 at one time. Where the first volley came over, I got down. I never heard anymore, but the second volley got me immediately. And when I got through that place, nothing but this trash, that's all. Trees, you didn't see a tree standing. If you saw one, someone was down here, some up here, and it was a mess in regard to what we saw. So I went down and told the lieutenant, I said, and the closer you could be to those Germans in that Hurtgen forest, the safer you were. The closest you could get to them, they couldn't shell you because they'd kill their own people. So I told the lieutenant what I suggested he do. I said, don't make any movements toward them. If you do, just let one person move, but move backwards or forward, but don't go toward them. So he called his squad leaders in, told them what to do. And then he heard me say that I had to go and call battalion to let them know that we're out of existence. And I've just come back to life, and the other boy's there, but he's helpless. So then the lieutenant cut that soldier out, took his place, and I don't even know his name, don't even know what he looked like. But he stayed there, and if I could find out what he looked like and know his name, I'd go all over this country to find him. But the lieutenant said, I want to go with you when you go up and make the call to a battalion. I said, I've never used a radio. I've carried it, set it up, and I know how to do it. But we didn't even know the password. So I went up there, and so he went with me. So we took the battery one that I had got hurt with before, and put the other one, tied them together with a quick fix. Put the antenna up, and then when I keyed it in, I had battalion on the other end of the line. And so I told them quickly, I said, please, we need a new crew up here. Please send us a crew now. It's urgent. I said, CEW, sign it off. And I turned that thing off. I didn't hear any voices because it was a one-way deal. That's the way it goes when you send in the signal. If you want help, that's how you do it. So then we got through, but the lieutenant looked at me and said, you think we went through? I said, I don't know. We'll know in the morning. And if we don't, we'll try again. Then we may have to send a courier out to run through back 3 or 4 miles and tell them that we're out. But then I got up next morning, but the medic came back by and gave me some pills. I know this time I was hurting awful bad, real bad. And he took care of the boy. And then before I went to bed, so then the lieutenant wanted to go over after we made that contact. He wanted to go over and pay his respect to our dead lieutenant. So he went over, and he was the one who stuck the gun in the ground and the helmet on top. He took one dog tag and put it in his mouth, the other one around his neck, and had a little ceremony. And I was trying to be assistant all I could, but I just wasn't there. And so when he got through, he took that paper out of his pocket and recorded where this body is. Because in case they moved, they wouldn't know where to come pick him up. So he wrote down where this dead body is, the lieutenant. And then he was almost total dark now. So he went back down with his people. And I went, and I was going to lay down beside my fellow pack mule soldier. That's what I would call us. But in the meantime, he was hungry and thirsty, and he wanted something to eat. And so I gave him a K ration and some water, and that took care of it. Then I laid down, and did you know, after I instructed the lieutenant down on what I recommended that they do, every night there was somebody got killed, wounded. And did you know the Germans picked up on that, and they did the same thing we did? They backed off and just took a rest. And there wasn't one shot fired that night. Next day, I got up and I said, ooh, can I get up from here? And I finally got up. And then the boy was hungry again. I gave him some more food. And I tried to take a bite, and I wasn't going to eat. But I was trying to get myself back together. And I looked over my right shoulder, and here comes the new lieutenant and the 2 new soldiers to take our place. They didn't bring the radio because they knew ours was okay because I had used it. Mm-hmm. So they walked in. And the lieutenant said, you're dismissed. Well, that's what they always do. They come in and push you out, and they take your place. Well, the lieutenant was dead, and the other boy was wounded, and they aren't going to let either one of them go. So he said to me, he said, do you think you can walk back out of here? But I'd love to see that soldier to find out who he was and so forth, but I didn't. So he told me, he said, there's a Jeep back there waiting on you to take you out as a wounded soldier. Can you do it? I said, I'll try. So I got me a stick with my gun, and I used that stick, and I'd go so far and sit down. And finally, I made the 3 or 4 or 5 miles, whatever it was. And then I was going down this real steep part. And the soldiers down there was driving the Jeeps. They saw I was coming, and 4 or 5 of them came and carried me down the rest of the way. And they loaded me on the Jeep, and went back to get attention. And again, the battalion sent the medic to be there. And this time, it wasn't as long as the first time, but I heard a lot. And from that first time, today, I live with on the scale in the VA from 5 to 6 every day of my life. if I go above it, and when I was at school, I'd go over to Dr. Greasehole in Cynthiana, and he'd put me back together. He knew my body like nobody's business. He could always bring me back down to that level that I could tolerate. But he couldn't ever cure me. But sometimes when I'd be crawling to get to him, when I left, one time he made me feel so good I drove to Lexington back, and that was a mistake. So, but anyway, we got through there, and the total loss of the Hurton force, killed or wounded, we lost 22,000 in 30 days. But we took the highlands, overlooking the Ruhr Valley and the Ruhr Dam and the German plains, and we held it to the end of the war. So, so this boy that got killed, that I told you a while ago, he may have been killed or they transported back to that cemetery, buried him. But he said he was killed, and I said, well, he was with, his unit was with us at that time. And so we stayed there 3 or 4 or 5 days until the Germans finally just backed out and gave it to us. They pulled out, and they declared the Hurton force. By that time, I was able enough to continue, and I wasn't both the upper, I was the driver. But we were so short on personnel that I had been there before I became the driver, and I was going up for just one turn to help. And they didn't relieve me, and I was there all 5 weeks, and I almost got killed. But I did recuperate. And then after that, they announced that we would be pulled out and go to Luxembourg. I've got Luxembourg, some stuff I can show you. And then when we got there, this mighty 7th Army, Luxembourg didn't have any army. They had police force. And the Germans had already been there. When they took Belgium, France, and Luxembourg, they took them all in one sweep. And Luxembourg had always been associated with Germany, and still are today. Even while we were there, the Germans came in and occupied the first time. They took over the headquarters and everything, and they said, well, we don't need to do this. They're part of us. So they left and the Luxembourg then went back and was operating their own facilities. Some of them took to the hills out of that first deal. And then they left the Luxembourg people alone. Then when we got there later, they invited us to come to Luxembourg. And that we left the Hurton Forest, and I drove 150 miles wounded. And when I got there, I had acquired a big fat jaw. I mean, a big one. And when I come up out of my tank to get up there, I was hanging on for dear life. I shouldn't have been driving. I've driven that tank when I wasn't able. But it's either drive it or get killed. And so sometimes that momentum of your body will speed up. So anyway, when I got up out of the tank, I was just hanging on here for dear life, just trying to get myself centered. And he looked and saw that big jaw, the captain did. He said, "Is that jaw hurt you bad?" I said, "Yes, sir." They got me down out of that tank, and he ordered his driver to take me back to a dentist back there, and they fixed my tooth immediately. He said, "Fix this guy." And then coming back, I was the only one that ever went into the city to get my tooth fixed. Coming back, they had the Luxembourg people was doing their thing, and we passed a stand where they had ice cream, and we stopped and got free ice cream, and boy, did that feel good on that jaw when I said. So I went back to the guy and said, "Hey, the town is operating," and it had been, and those people had passed to Germany. And then when they found out that this battle was going to start, see, the battle of Bulls hadn't started yet. We just finished the Hurton Force. The bloodiest battle of the war was that one. Of all wars, that was the bloodiest battle in 30 days. And we were there. But the Luxembourg people was going to Germany and back, and they had to have a pass to go. And they kept saying on the other side of the river, there's an awful lot of German soldiers over there in tanks. And they kept saying it, so we began to register a little bit. Then all of a sudden, here they came. Snow was on the ground about so deep. They were in white uniforms, winter clothes, and we still had the same ones we had on back in Normandy, them dirty breeches. And if we hadn't had those clothes that had the pores filled up with dirt, I think we'd have froze to death in the Hurricane Forest. I think it saved our life. But our clothes was never washed. And so they kept saying this. Then all of a sudden, on December the 16th, here come the Germans. The mightiest German unit in their army was being sent through Cherbourg. Luxembourg. And so they were coming through because they went through before, and no, they didn't interfere. They just stood and watched them, let them go on. So they came, and they were our enemy, and we were their enemy. So when we saw them coming, we opened fire on them, and we stopped them in their tracks. And that was the best army that they had. They were going to come through Luxembourg and then turn north and cut at Bastogne. They were going to separate the American forces and drive us into the sea at Calais. We didn't let them come through. So we fought the Germans from the 16th of December to Christmas 24th afternoon, day before Christmas Day. And we done killed probably 50,000. We lost 7,700 there in that battle, and they're buried in the cemetery right there. And these people, Luxembourg, they honor they're about the most patriotic people I've ever seen. Everything in that cemetery, they go there for their picnics and this and that. And anything was damaged during the war, they encased it, and it'll stay that way for the rest of their lives to let people know that this happened against their country. And so this thing I've got here, I think I've got it right here. After we left here, they built this memorial to honor us. And they had somebody that knew how to work that marble. And we left there on the 28th after Christmas. And there's a story that's in this thing. How much time you got left?
Not a whole lot.
Then I'll speed it up. But we did have a story there. The Christmas Day is tomorrow. My mother had always sent me packages. And every time she sent me a package, she went down to that chicken place and cut it down, and she told me she's going to send me one. She cooked that chicken, brought it up that cannery like Carlisle had right below where I had the shop. And they'd bring it up, put it in a tin can and seal it. And she'd put that in the box and send it. So she had sent me one about every 5 weeks with cookies and film and whatever she could get to send me. So one morning, they said we hadn't had any mail for 18 weeks or longer. They said, 4th Division's not fighting. They're up there. Give them their mail. So they came and they said, first thing they said, Charles E. Wilson, there was no beat up box. Directly they called the second one. Third, there was 3 of them came in. And when I stuck a knife into that person, that chicken smell came out of there. And I fed all the soldiers around me. We all had a Christmas dinner. Chicken on the ground. The best Christmas we ever had. And then I'll tell you a little story about what happened. Of course, small things sometimes is what keeps you alive. So after this happened, you see the boys hadn't had any rest for 16, no sleep, day and night. We were killing Germans. And then once they retreated back into their country, they waved the flag and turned around and went home. And then that night we had no firing at all. And next morning was Christmas. So we fed them. And then all of a sudden some of these guys, the snow was so deep, very, very cold, we never was in anywhere. You was always out with your tank, wherever it was. Rain, sleet or snow, hot or cold, you were there. So some of the boys began to yawn a little bit. So they went over, laid their field jacket down, curled up on it like in their mama's womb. And they, sometimes 15, 20 minutes is enough because you were used to not having it. So they got up and finally one boy said to me, he said, Wilson, we never knew the first names. One name, the shortest thing that you say is what you do. He said, Wilson, do you think your mother would adopt me? I said, well, next time I write her, I'll ask her. Would she like to adopt a soldier here? This old wisecracker said, and this helped us. This built us up. He said, hell, I'd kill your dad and marry her. And everybody busted guts, see? And at that moment, we needed that. And so a few days in after that, on 28th, they decided to build this. And it said, here's all the information about it. Here it is, but I put in 2 pictures, magnify this so you could read it. They built this to our honor. Everything is there with our 4th Division soldiers who had buried there, 7,700. And all the Germans, they built a hole back there and buried 50,000 or more in a hole and covered them up with a little thing that says German soldiers. They never picked up their soldiers. We always took ours. And then, so on the 28th, they said, you guys leave, pull out. You're needed to fight, go across the Salle River. That's the river that they cross. You cross the river and fight your way up and cut off all supply lines from Germany coming into Bastogne. We did that. And when we got up there, we wasn't there for a little while. We had them cut off. And the word came down, you got to go into battle. And the 101st Division had come from Holland, and they were in there. And they got surrounded by the Germans and had no ammunition. And guess who was there that I helped to rescue? Gene Snap. From here.
From Carlisle.
Yes. And when I got here, he began to tell the whole world that Charlie Wilson and his 4th Division fought their way in and saved us from getting captured. They had them almost in double file, ready to march them across into Germany. So we identified our tanks and they had already stolen the whole division of Americans. They had all the equipment, all the uniforms, and they had all these soldiers dressed in American uniforms, driving American equipment. So we had to identify our tank special. And if we didn't have that special plaque on the top, we knocked them out. And we fought our way and saved Gene Snap's life and his bunch. And he told the whole world, of course, he died, 6 months ago? And, but he was one of them. And I said, we had to be good for something. And we'd already saved the ones in Normandy, see. We went and to them, actually dropped. But now, this time, they were practically captured. And we fought our way in and we brought them out with us. So that was that thing. So then from there, time went to start happening real fast. Hitler had shot his wad. Now the Battle of the Bulge is here. And Hitler had 27 days to get this job done. There'd be no sunshine. It's going to be total darkness. That was part of that year that he had it down perfect. And in fact, the 7th Army had gotten through and turned and went this way. We stopped them dead in their tracks. And then his time ran out. And they were going to get gasoline and supplies from us and so forth to run their judgment on it because they were getting short on petrol. And so then the sky lit up. The planes down could come down and get them. And they began to knock out that German equipment. And Hitler shot his wad. And then from there on, going to the Rhine River, we crossed the Rhine River. Quite a task to drive a tank across a little thing right here on a boat, one over here on a boat. And that you aren't going to go to the bottom. That's how we crossed. And so we got on the other side, and Frankfurt and all the other side were waiting on us to occupy. They had seen enough bombings, so all we had to do was go in, but you had to be watching for crackpots. So we drove hundreds and hundreds of miles, fast as we could drive. And so we wound up down Munich. And there's where we found something that you may not know about. We had been on the Hitler Highway. First time I'd ever seen a wide highway like that. They were using that highway for an airstrip. No bombs had ever hit it. So they moved us off the Hitler Highway and went this way. And I began to smell. I'm a farm boy. And there was nothing there. There was no chicken farm, no hog farm. It was something else. And I began to tell my commander, be looking to the right. Be looking. And the closer I got, the louder the smell was. I said, look hard. And when we got right in front of these bunch of buildings that looked like a bunch of hog farm buildings, that was Dachau, the last death camp. And my tank stopped dead still right in front of that thing. We saw that place was closed. Never will they be. So and one thing that gave it away to us, I had seen all the dead out here. Probably 20,000, 30,000 dead, naked, piled on top of each other. And supposedly around in back there was railroad buggies, like a coal car here, but they were a little smaller. Supposedly they were around it, but we never was out of our tank. So when I stopped it came on the radio, why haven't you stopped? And I told us, plain old told them, I said, there's something up here bad, very bad. It needs immediate attention, if not sooner. And when I got up out of the tank and cut it off, got up, and I done seen this, but when I got up and turned this way, there was those people, the Jewish people that hadn't yet been put to death in the death camp. And they were anywhere from 10 to 50. And I came up with a figure 15 to 30. And those people were watching them Germans. As we got closer, all them keepers and guards grabbed up their stuff so they couldn't be implicated in the Nuremberg trials. Mm-hmm. And they took off. And by that time, the Jewish people started walking. And here they come. Just walking dead. But they got there. They couldn't have waved at you, they couldn't have smiled at you, they couldn't do anything. But they got there. And so when they got there, that's what I saw. But that time, that was when the radio come on. And I said to them, I said, and they said, why have you stopped? I was leading the whole convoy. And Patton's army was to go in Munich, right, which is just a mile or two away, and occupy it before dark. This was the last city that we took. And that's the last thing that happened. So then when it's all said and done, I told him, I said, there's something bad up here that needs attention right now, not sooner. He said, we'll be there. So this Jeep coming around through the tanks right in the middle of the road. All the equipment, whoever's back there, MPs and whomever else was going to be the people, the keepers of that city was behind me. And I didn't always lead. It could be 4-3-2-1 or 1-2-4-1. You never knew who was going to lead, but there was 3 more tanks right behind there that the first tank got in trouble. They would fan out and kill it and destroy it. And so, and then when I told him, here come the Jeep, and he got there. And those officers looked over and saw what we had. They said, now, and I told them I wasn't moving. I didn't give them an order. I'm not moving this tank until something's done. Because nobody knew that death camp was there till my tank crew stopped and let it be known. Even the people that's supposed to know on intelligence, they didn't know that. But we did. And we stayed there, and then they said, okay, now you get this convoy going, and we'll take over. And they did. And in that bunch, there was some people I knew. Senator Lieberman, who ran with Al Gore for vice president, they run the campaign trail several years later. And his wife was talking about their religion, and her mother was saved when that American tank stopped down front, docked out, and closed that place down. Her life was saved. And 5 or 6 years later, I had met Senator Lieberman, and one day I said, you know, nobody knows who that tank was and who was in it. They could have looked it up, who was leading that tank that day. But then I let it be known that I and my tank crew, we the only one knows who we were. So I called him, I told him, I said, now I've got something that you might like to know. I'm not looking for any money, I'm not looking for anything or no honors or anything else. But I said, when your wife was on the campaign trail, and she spoke on TV, said, told the history about their religion, and said, when that American tank stopped down there in front of Dock, her mother's life was saved. And I said, my tank crew, that group I showed you all ago, that was the same crew that I had on the invasion. We had lost 2 or 3. It got replaced, but that was our crew. And so that was the last we did. And then we went on around and blocked the exits for Munich so they couldn't go up into the mountains. Out Mountain was here, Austria's right there, 3 miles away. And Hitler's favorite place was Munich. And so we cut off those areas. And then we went down to Bad Tölz, Germany. That's where we still waited till the Russians came into Berlin. And that's where we were when they signed the peace treaty and surrender papers. And at that moment, all of Europe that had been taken, they were all taken but 2 countries. Switzerland, they were furnishing stuff to the German army. They should have been bombed. And then Sweden was the other one. I think they stayed neutral. But all the rest of them had German soldiers in them. And at that moment, these soldiers got rid of their helmets and their guns and anything that had to do with war. Now they're part-time soldiers in a foreign country. And did Germany come and get them? No. The people who they had been under captivity of the Germans had to round them up and take them somewhere to get rid of them, to get their total freedom back. So after they signed this peace treaty, and this happened, within 1 hour and a half, they announced we were hoping to stay a week or two or a month in Germany because I thought I could learn a lot from them. They were smart people. We were never allowed to be anywhere for long. We wasn't even allowed to march in the parade in Paris. So they announced that tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. the 4th Division will be on their way to a new assignment. So hurry up and wait. We didn't go pull out 2, we pulled out 3. And for the first time, I was able to turn the headlights on that tank. You just can't pull it on and turn them on. You have to do this, this, and that before they'll ever come on. Because if you pull them out to get your blackout lights on, which down here close to the ground where I can see you in front, if you get in the ditch in the front of me, I come right in behind you because I'm following you. And so anyway, and on the way, Smitty rode with me. He served as my commander. He and I drove the tank to Munich, and that's when I took the clock out of the tank. Before I could get out of the tank, Smitty got out and went on over. They could stay later because they were going to be in the truck. And I don't know how they could stay, but they were there waiting on us. So we pulled his tank into a big field there where all the tanks were being parked and other war equipment. And he jumped out and went over. I said, I can't jump out. I've got to stay here. I don't want to fight no more. I don't want to drive this tank no more. But there's one thing I did do. I drove that tank from the 14th of July to the rest of the war. And I was able to keep my tank crew safe and sound and secure. And we did all the damage we could do at all the battles. Battle of Boyle, was Hurricane Force, Battle of the Rhine, and the Battle of Luxembourg. And we lost 7,700 in Luxembourg. And we were all buried there. Patton later was killed, and he's buried there also. And this wall of things, it has that written down in it. And so then we started our way toward back home. And then about 5 minutes when I stopped it, and we'll show you things if you need to see them, want to.
Sure.
That we started back toward France. We got back to France at the later part of we left Le Havre on July the 2nd. So we got back June 27th or 8th. So some of us that was in Paris on the invasion, we got to go back to Paris, and I took a tour sightseeing tour, and visited the city, and 2 days and a night. Then we got back to our day on July 2nd. We were loaded to ships, and we already knew where we was going, but we got out in the ocean far enough that you couldn't swim back to the shore of France. They said, you will now do the same thing in Japan that you did on Normandy Beach. So we were to come back to the States, and we spent 30 days recuperation period. And while I was home, I went through hell. I mean, I was almost a total wreck. And because of something we was going to have to do. The Japanese people have been teaching those women and children to kill American soldiers. And on that invasion, if they came toward me as a child with stuff around his waist, we had to kill him. Now, the people in Germany was combatants. They weren't humans, they were combatants. Now we're going to have to consider those kids and women combatants. We may have killed 2 or 3 women and some children in France, Belgium, Luxembourg, but they got in the way of firing. But they weren't going to come toward us to try to block us from coming in. So if we had gotten there, we were on our way. If we had gotten there, and all the time I was there, he was just bugging me. I could be out with one of you pretty girls, and they would override it. And I was wrecked. And on the 29th day when I got to Indiana, going out to Atterbury, that's where I was to leave from. And finally I said, Wilson, you got to do it. And they had done us in Germany. Took some of my crew that's going to go with us. They kept them in Germany and gave me 7 new soldiers didn't even know how to operate a tank. And while we were at Camp Butler, all the time we was out in the field training these guys. to try to get them ready. I told the captain, I said, we're going to get killed. He said, why? I said, somebody took 7 of our crew, the sergeant and all the main gunners and the whole bunch, all but 3 of us that went through the war. They took them away from us and gave us 7 new recruits. And we brought them new recruits back with us. And so he ordered that we take those tanks off them boxcars, ready, they were tied down, ready to go to West Coast, ready for the journey. I found my tank on the boxcar. And the next morning we went and took them off the boxcar and started training these soldiers. But then we finally, we did that. They screwed my record up. Oh, it was something else. And I finally got straightened out a few weeks ago. Now they had me down, everything incorrectly. And so we got straightened out. And now I'm a true American soldier in the war, and they call me a non-service connected veteran, meaning I didn't get wounded in there. I got home, didn't fell out of a tree or something back here in Kentucky. And they had me categorized till we finally got straightened out. Randy Fisher from Middlesbrough, over he I don't know if you ever know him, but he worked for the VA for a long time, and now he's with American Legion, and he knew how to shortcut. He helped me to get my record straight out. But we didn't have to go, but finally I said, now we're going to have to do it, and here's what we'd had to do. The guys that had the rifles would have going to have to kill these soldiers, these women and children. Shoot them, because now they're combatants. And how are you going to take a kid and make a combatant out of it? I don't know. That was killing me. But I said, we'll have to. Then if they don't kill them, guess what I'm going to have to do? Crush them with a tank. Run over and kill them until they start to the hills and realize that that's not where they're supposed to be here. They're supposed to be hid in the hills that we passed by. That's what the French and all them people did. They were pretty skillful at it. France, they knew how to disappear. They'd take them wheelbars and load it up and take to the hills. When they got back, they'd come back with a wheelbar, see what was left for them to rebuild. In France, they were there in 1918, World War I. 20-something years later, we were back in World War II with the French. And, that's where we ended, so we didn't have to go to there, and I'm sure thankful. They dropped the first atomic bomb, and that slowed us down. But we were stopping at Camp Butler. That's where all our equipment was. That's the only place they had railroads enough to handle it all. We were going to get on those trains and ride to the West Coast and get on the ships and go. But we didn't have to. We were on our way, thank goodness. And I didn't have to make that effort. But I was going to have to do it. And we were out there in the field training these boys to do this. We were given special training now for Germany's over. Now we're fixing to attack a new country, Japan. Now this is what we're going to have to do. We know that we're going to have to do it. So so then I was discharged from there. Mm-hmm. Came home, went back to high school, got my diploma, back to the same school I left from. Then the GI Bill came out, and then I took the GI Bill with Sioux Bennett College for 2 years, went to Eastern for 4, and stayed 2 more years for my master's degree. And then I wound up in Carlisle, Kentucky. And got here in 1950, my first job was here. I've been here ever since. And I told people I got here and got so poor that I couldn't afford to pick up a truck to move me, or hire somebody to move it. And I said, you call that white slavery. And so anyway, there's a little humor in some of the things I have. That last one I did, there's some humor about Nicholas County, you know. But the war was over, and I got home, and I went home. They sent me up through New York, down through Canada and American line to Windsor, across into Detroit and down Cincinnati, and I was home. And Mother and them had moved there, and then I was so poor, I had no money when I went. I had to sell my 8-mile car to get enough money to the mail carrier to have a little money in my pocket. At 10 cents an hour, $6 a week, you don't get rich. But everything was accordingly, you know, in the price. So I went out there, and 2 days later, I went downtown and said, sir, I just was discharged 2 days ago, and I've got to have a job. I use the term, I ain't got no money. And he said, look me over, and I was all meat, no taters. We didn't have no fat. It was all muscle. And I weighed still about 140 pounds and went through all what I did. And that picture I showed you of my brother and me, I got another picture that shows him stripped down to the waist to me. There's no meat, there's all meat, no taters. And then he died in '79, the same year I was left graduate, got myself discharged from Nichols County, retired. And so, and that's the story of me and the war. I finally got my record straightened out. And now, I went to the VA, got all that same stuff changed. Now I'm a genuine World War II veteran. And Keeneland honored me the other day on the 20th of October being the hero for the day at Keeneland. What a treat.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
So neat.
So that's it. I'd say we're talking to you. What?
Who did you think of during the war and what kept you going?
Okay. Well, what kept me going was we had a crazy boy in our outfit. And as I said before, some of the little things sometimes will keep you sane. And we weren't cracking up like some of these guys do. They come home with this and this and this and that. We kept our own sanity. And we were, that clock thing right there, I bet I was asked 20,000 times, or maybe more, 50,000, what time is it? And I tell them. And that statement to one said, and one boy said, hell, you just asked him 5 minutes ago what time it was. And that gave everybody a laugh, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes little thing. So that was one of the things. I left a very beautiful lady here in Science Hill, Kentucky. And I won't tell you her name because it's be on TV, but she was with me then. She stayed with me till I went to service. She lived in Science Hill. And then while I was gone, she moved to Dayton, Ohio, and lived with her sister and her brother-in-law. And she got a job in the factory. And when I came home the third day of recuperation period, I went to see her in Dayton. Very beautiful lady, wonderful person. I guess a companion, I guess she was the best companion I ever had in my life. And so I went up to see her on that time. Then when I went back, and we were going to Japan, but we didn't go, then we was discharged. Then I came home, then I saw her several times. But then this school thing came up. And I knew if I didn't go back and get my diploma, they took me out of school, but they'd offered to send me back to get it. And that's before the GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and decided I'd go to school. And I made a big mistake in my life. Biggest mistake I ever made was when I didn't consult with a certain lady at a certain place and tell her what I had in mind. I went down there and got interested in the school. I didn't have any money to go back and forth yet. I had no money. I got money from where I could, got my services, health service, anywhere I could get it. Dr. Morford treated me several times before he went back to service and came back. He gave me free service and so forth. And that was where I was, and didn't have any money. So I didn't have any money till I come to Carlisle and got this job. And then I had only about $200 a month left after I taught 30 days. And you don't get rich at $200 either at this school. But we had to, within our own body, on staying alive and so forth, we had to create it. And we had this one boy could tell you a story about he and his wife. He's red-faced, and then we'd come under attack. I don't care what it was. We'd be underneath that tank. If you was under the bottom of the tank, you better move over because the other 9 will be right on top of you in a minute. And that's where we always took shelter. So it was our transportation, our tool that we killed Germans with. It was everything to us. At the end of the war, that tank was declared one of the best tanks that the United States Army had during World War II. But that's how we kind of did it. And memories of home. And I found a jet airplane in Normandy. We'd never seen one of the German jets before. And I saw that thing, looked at it, I said, it don't have no propellers on it. So I went down and looked at that thing, I said, and then found out. So I broke the windshield out of that thing, and I put the handles on my pistol, and I put a girl picture on one side and an old car on the other. And that gave me, I could look at that pistol, you know, and say, yeah, that girl's, she's waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And so the little thing kept us alive, and you couldn't think about it. If something happened, you think about it no more, as if it didn't happen. It was a dream. And coming out of the Hertz Enforcement, when I come out of there, I stepped over dead bodies, one right after the other to get out. But I didn't see them. You don't see them. You set up a mindset that you just don't do it. You can't do that to happen. So those are the kind of things the Kelp was saying. Is that sufficient? Okay.
When you found out that you were coming home, what was the thing that you looked forward to the most?
Well, just out of the blue, I didn't know I was coming home. They dropped that first bomb. We still was going to Japan to fight the Japanese. But they slowed us down. Then after they dropped the second one, we was out in the field. We were never. And back in there, they forged papers, signed my name, and I wasn't even there. They said we had services, sessions, physical, and all that stuff. We weren't there to get physicals. We were going to get them in California, see. But they piled all those fake papers on me. So then they dropped that second one, and they brought a Jeep out in the field where we were and said, you don't have to train anymore. Come in and wait for your name to appear on the bulletin board. We brought the tank in, cleaned it up that afternoon, and next morning my name was on the bulletin board to be discharged. Because we had expressed that we didn't want to go any further. Because I was there 3 years, and it was 3 years of hell. We were 95% of all the time I was in that we were fighting at the time. And money-wise, it wasn't anything, because we got $50 a month overseas fighting time. And $33 came home to our parents, and they saved that money. And when I got home, Dad had bought me a car to replace the A bottle that I had sold to the mail van. And so that's, it was so quick that then we got ready to do, and they just had that air right there, about the big as it was. They had 3 chairs there to discharge us. One guy took my fingerprint, put on my discharge. Gave me a tissue to wipe it off. He handed the discharge to me. Or he handed it to the other guy. Then he said, turned to a page, said, sign your name right here like it's up here. So I did. He handed it to me. And this last person, I now have my discharge within 2 minutes. I've been discharged. And then this last person gave me a piece of money, $100 stipend, for my mustering out pay. The time I got home, that was gone. And they gave us a bus ticket from Camp Butler, North Carolina to Cincinnati. And on the way home, I stopped with this boy who was so good on telling tales about he and his wife. I stopped in Mace, West Virginia, right out of Elkins. That's where they lived. And so we walked up this holler, and we went squirrel hunting that night. A day, or next day. I spent 3 days there. And we went squirrel hunting. So she had a .22 rifle and we had shotgun piece. Guess who got all the squirrels? She did. So they fixed those squirrels up that night, and best eating I've ever had. That's the first good meal I'd had after we got out. And I come up with a tale. And we ate and stayed all night. And I come up with a tale. I said, now look, I'm leaving here. And I said, and they knew I was lying, but I said it anyway. I said, any woman can outshoot me and get all the squirrels. I got nothing. I'm going home. I've been showed up. Well, that wasn't the reason I was going on home. I had to go home and get a job to make it. But I did stop and spent those 2-3 days with them. And then later, after I finally found one of my buddies after 63 years that's still alive in Muscadine, Alabama. I'll be stopping seeing his family. 6 weeks after that, he died on me in his sleep. If I had known why I was there, I would have stayed. I was to go on to see my sergeant's kids, because he died at 38 when he got home, and I was to meet with his oldest daughter. Well, I would have called her and said, I'm not coming, I'm going to stay here. But I wasn't supposed to know. But the good maker saw fit to it that we got together 63 years after the war, and we hadn't seen each other. But I sent out letters to W.D. Hagen and family, Muscadine, Alabama. I knew where they left from, and many of the soldiers went back there, and he was one of them. So, 4 or 5, less than a week, I got a telephone call. I had my Florida address and telephone numbers there. And his wife said, David, call the man. And so he got on the phone and called me, and first thing he said to me, Said, what in the hell you been doing for the last 63 years? I said, well, I've been trying to make a living. I found out I wasn't doing a very good job, and I retired, and I'm still not doing any good. But I'm here, and I'm happy. So we called a couple of times, and he said, I want you to meet my Irene. So I'd like to see you. Well, I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When I leave here, I don't know where in the heck Muscadine, Alabama is, but I'll find you. Tomorrow afternoon by 4 o'clock Alabama time, I'll be there. So me and that car buddy, we cranked that old take up as if it was a take, and we opened that sucker wide open, and we come toward Alabama, and I found it. We got there at 3:45 the Alabama time. And so, and they had given me directions how to get there, but I got up to the store, take a right, but there was 2 rights. I went in the store, and I asked this lady, I said, which one of these roads do I take to go to W.D. Hagen's house? She didn't answer me. Then she said, are you his war buddy? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, they're all down there waiting on you. So a truck driver came by. He had his tractor on me. He left his trailer somewhere. And he lived on down past her. She said, are you going home? She called him by name. He said, yes. He said, make sure Mr. Wilson knows when he gets to W.D. Hagen's house. And when I got there, I recognized what they said about in the front yard and so forth. But he stopped waiting, flashed his lights, and then I pulled in, and I blew the horn. And here come a pretty good-sized fat man out. I began to peel off the ears, till I got down to about the size he was. And I found out I was at the right place. So we hugged and we beat each other on the back. And I don't think we hit each other on the butt. That's like, but we beat each other on the back, and then directed the door open, and here come his Irene out to greet me. And then all of a sudden the door opened, and here come the rest of the kit and caboodles, rest of them.
Uh-huh.
And then we stood out there for a while, and we went inside, and I showed him that film of Kentucky World War II veterans on war that night. He had never talked about the war, and we got him to talking. And so his granddaughter said, Mr. Wilson, said, from now on you remember our family, because I've heard more about my grandpa, Papa, tonight than ever. I said, well, I'd be honored to be in your family. But I didn't know he was going to die on me. He seemed to be fairly healthy, but he had some lung trouble. And he lay down every afternoon, take a nap, and he died in his sleep. And so then I went back, Sandra and I we went back to the funeral. Drove 700 miles. And then people couldn't believe that we'd drive 700 miles from here down there to be part of the funeral. And we were there. And we did our thing. Whatever they wanted me to do, I would do it. And I helped to lead. There's a Baptist church just up from their house, right off of 20 Highway going to Birmingham, from straight up to Atlanta. And so the church was there. So I got there, and they dropped me off. I had my uniform on, this and the rest of it. And so they went and found a motel and changed their clothes, and then they came back. But as soon as I walked in, the whole kit and caboodle come running. They said, he's here. They told him that time he's going to come back. And I was up Boone County when I got the message, and the reception's very good there. I said, quickly tell me the details. I said, what'd you say? And then they told me that he passed away in his sleep. I said, give me the details. And when you get them, you call me back. So the next morning, I stayed all night at the farm. I was down in Williamstown, started down the hill, the phone rang. When I got up on the hill next, I stopped, and I got the rest of the information. He was going to be buried so-and-so. And I said, I will be in Muscadine, Alabama. And so Sandra, she went. Sally and Gerald went, and I was there. So we 4 of us went down there, and they all got to know Sally. And they love her to death down there. The Hagens do. Yeah, they think she hangs on the moon. And then I told them when we said the first time, I said, when I come back, I'll have this second film that's made at Selection Library about me and Nichols County.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show it to you. Well, I didn't get back, but when I went back for the funeral, they said, did you bring a film? Oh, we want to see it. I said, no, this isn't the time. I'll be back through it, and then we'll show it to you. But we were going to get him to jabber like a goose,
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw the second one. But the family saw it, and they have all copies of all this stuff. And Keeneland has copied this thing. They got 10 copies of these films, and everybody over there has a film about this.
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to have to use me again in April.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, that's my life.